Yeah, now that shit changes.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to War Games Podcast number 21. So, you lucky sons of bitches have a very, very good podcast ahead of you tonight. As I have some guests with me. Tonight, we have Mr. Heckman and the donkey himself, Mr. Yogi. Thank you guys for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Now,
Thank you for having me as well.
Well, I've only been trying for, about 3 months now to get Heckman on the podcast, and he finally said yes, mostly because I put him in a corner and said, "You're doing this, yes." And Yogi, I've had you on the podcast once before, or is it twice?
This is my first time in the podcast.
I thought I had you on back when Munson and everybody was on here.
Nope.
Oh. Yeah, because there was one night where we had like fucking 6 of us on here, and it was like utter goddamn chaos. So, a couple different things we're going to talk about tonight. No real specific stuff. Just kind of going to cover the gamut of gaming, movies, stuff like that. And as Liquid is pointing out in chat there, I guess we can kind of cover that first. Well, firstly, I'm gonna go to Yogi. Yogi, we know each other, I guess, firstly from back in the day being in 1-4 together. I was your squad leader. You were one of my AGs, working with Lee's at that time, who was my alpha machine gunner. And then I think you actually bounced back and forth between Lee's and Sam's a couple times or once or something like that. But what got you into ArmA and kind of what brought you to the 506?
Alright, yeah, that's a good question. I guess how I initially joined the unit was because of Lee's. Because people who don't know, I knew Lee's outside the unit. I know very well in real life. Like a fun fact, I've known Lee's now for almost 10 years now. Just from pure gaming, and he just convinced me to give the 506 a go, so I have no idea who the 506 was, what they did, what they do, and he just talked about like, they do large-scale missions and trainings. And it got me interesting, and I applied, did the trainings, and I joined 1.4. And ever since then, it's been a roller coaster of fun, to be honest.
Yeah, because yeah, so you were in 1.4. That's where you got the nickname the Donkey. And for those of you guys listening, Yogi is the OG donkey. Pretty much all AGs now are referred to as donkeys, but Yogi was the first. He was the first guy that we all started calling donkey. So it just kind of stuck. And even though now he's not a donkey, we still call him the donkey. And you dabbled for a little while as a medic, and now you stepped up basically to my old role. You're not running 1.4, but you're a weapons squad leader now. What do you think of it? Do you think when you were a weapons squad member, did you think that my job as the weapons squad leader, like doing it now yourself, is it everything you expected it was, or easier or harder, or what?
Well, I would say being an AG donkey to a donkey right now is no difference for a squad lead.
Yeah.
But it definitely, I don't know what to. It definitely answers a lot of questions, really. Because when I saw you were squad lead and how we watch you squad lead compared to, oh crap, I'm doing what Brewer did. What the fuck do I do? And honestly, it's been. I don't want to say easy, but it's been fairly easy going for the fact the guys in 3.4 have done really well. Adjusting to me leading the squad, which is just a terrible idea to begin with. But
yeah, you do have. I mean, you've got some great guys in 3.4, and you've got guys like Lion, who's been here forever and has a metric fuck ton of experience. So I can definitely understand what you mean when you say it's been kind of easy, because you have guys that really know what they're doing.
yeah, I've been fairly fortunate of the guys in 3.4 and what they can do. Especially a guy called Taylor, who I call Mini Lee's, considering how good he is in the 240. Just scary considering how good he was in the 240 back in the day.
Yeah, and for any of you guys listening that like watch me during OSUT and stuff like that, usually when I'm going over the spiel about the 240 Bravo, I relate to a story where one of my machine gunners took out a marksman. It was a little over 1,500 yards or something. Lee's is the one that did that. We were in a platoon training where we were, or actually it might have been an FTX. Either way, we were training on like ambush or some shit. And we had a marksman start taking pot shots at us from a hill, and I had given Lee's my thermal, which only ranges to 1,000 meters, and he fired a single burst of like 3 or 4 rounds and smoked the dude in the head. And that's when all of us were like, "Holy fuck!"
Oh no, it was he didn't have thermals. You sent me and Lee's over there. I ranged it. He fired 3 rounds and the guy was dead.
Oh, I thought he did have my thermals. So as far as what Liquid brought up, you and Soto, this is where the pizza bets all originated, was with Yogi and Soto. You and Soto had made a bet for something about for a pizza. Now, before we get into the actual story of where the bet came from and so on, this relationship, I guess if you will, between Soto and the infantry, as we talked about when Soto was on the podcast, all came from when Soto first became a pilot. Coke, the guy that he was replacing, basically told him, "Hey, I'm only going to give you this seat in the 74th if you go and you get close with the infantry, and specifically 1.4, because that's where Havoc 1 was the task force he was going to be flying for, and we always had a friendly rivalry with Coke as far as who could take out ArmA first." So Soto, from the very start of his career as a pilot, knew all of us guys in 1.4 very well. We all hung out together. Again, we had a friendly rivalry going. So that relationship started very early on. And then this bet came about for a pizza. What were you guys betting on when you bet Soto a pizza?
Honestly, I can't remember what the bet was initially was, but I just remember my reaction like, oh, that owes me a pizza, and then it was just from
whatever
there.
it was, you won.
Yeah, whatever it was, I won. I can't remember what the bet was. It was just We spent like half an hour trying to help Soda, like, how do you order Yogi a pizza from a different country?
Right, and Soto has told me a couple of times that when he ordered it, his bank called him and was like, "Is this right? Because you're in Atlanta and you're ordering a pizza in Ireland." But it was right, and you got the pizza, and you threw the picture up on the forums of the
Oh,
pizza
yeah.
once you got it.
It was a fairly big pizza too.
Yeah, and from what I remember you saying, it was quite tasty.
Oh yeah, taste of victory.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where the pizza bets started. And then I was on the receiving end of that taste of victory on New Year's of last year. So a year ago on New Year's, New Year's Eve, we were all playing Secret Hitler, which is a game you can play on Board Game Simulator or whatever. Not going to get into all the details about necessarily how the game works, but essentially you got to figure out who Hitler and the fascists are, and by asking questions and shit like that and trying to figure out who's doing what. So anyways, I was one of the fascists, and our Munson, was Hitler. And Yogi was absolutely convinced that I was Hitler. So much so that he decided to open his mouth and say, "I'll bet a pizza on it." To which I immediately said, "Are you sure?" And he was gung-ho as a motherfucker. So I said, "Okay, we'll bet a pizza on it." And by the end of the game, we had basically convinced all of the good guys to kill each other. And me and Ryan and Yogi were the only three left. So we won by default. And we flipped our cards, and I wasn't Hitler. I was one of the fascists. So I won a pizza. And sure as shit, Yogi hooked it up.
I walked out my room.
Yeah, Yogi hooked it up, and I actually didn't even end up buying an actual pizza. I got some chicken bacon ranch stuffed bread, which was absolutely amazing. And now the pizza bet continues on with anyone that takes out a Tunguska gets a pizza from Soto. So cool little fun fact, I guess, if you will, of where the pizza bets started from and what it's evolved to now. That if you take out a Tunguska, you get a pizza from Captain Soto. So pretty cool little thing within the unit. And so moving on from that, I guess getting the introduction out of the way for Yogi, who is, as I said, 3-4's weapon squad leader. Moving on to the other beautiful bastard that is in the room, Mr. Heckman, who has been here longer than any of us, myself included, and who still to this day, I say, is the best platoon sergeant that the unit's ever had. Heckman, how did you get introduced into ArmA, and not even the 506, how did you get introduced into the 15th?
Oh goodness.
I know, we're pulling up like ancient history. You might have to like go to the library, get like some dusty books and open them up.
It was Twitch. I was watching Twitch way back when, and I was watching these people play this DayZ mod, and I was like, well, what the shit is this? This is okay. I see there's just a gentleman out here, and he's just running through the woods, and he's like when DayZ first came out, that's all it basically was. It was like run through the woods simulator. So
that's where all of that joke kind of started. Running simulator was DayZ.
Yeah, no joke. So I'm watching this and I'm like, man, that's pretty interesting. Then in that same, like, I was looking at other streams of DayZ, and I noticed there was like a European unit that was doing like other stuff. And when I saw they like pulled out like the radio, and like it had like a little knob on it, and like the compass, and I was like, oh shit. I was like, this game is like military? I was like, Okay. So then I started watching videos, old school freaking from Bacana and Captain Lieber. And I started watching these videos on YouTube of the 15th. And I was like, oh, okay, I want to be a part of this. So I went ahead and I joined the 15th. Um, I joined, oh, fuck, Gambler, I think. Gambler 2, and Drumheller was Drumheller was my platoon sergeant. And then he proceeded to almost get kicked out of the unit. And like within the first week I was there, and my very first operation, I was a what was it? The Not an AR, the one that carried the ammo or whatever, assistant AR, the
Mhm.
AAR, and like I had no idea what I was doing. I had the controls. It was because like there was no training back then. Like they just wanted to make sure you could boot your game up, and like that's a wrap.
Right.
Like you're good to go.
Yeah, you didn't
And the
have fucking 4 days of OSUT and recruit
No,
training and all of that.
nope. So formations, all that shit was just on the fly. So my very first op, I'm in there, um and we're cresting this like river, and we go over this tiny little berm that's like looking down into the river, and on the other side it's the same feature, and over their little berm a Tunguska comes peeking its head up
Oh,
and just
Jesus.
whacks our AAV. Dead bodies everywhere. Freaking somebody was like, Heckman. I was like, oh, what do you want? This like a
Yes,
little
Sergeant.
private. So they're like, give a CPR to this guy. And I was like, okay. And I just went over it. I was like, I don't know how to give the CPR
You're
for
just staring at him.
the first three. I'd say first three operations, I had no idea how to configure my interact button. So I was all thrashed. But at that moment, looking at all these people and looking at the corpsmen doing CPR and like everybody like pulling back and stuff, I was hooked. And with having Drumheller as my platoon sergeant and stuff, it was like I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be a platoon sergeant, and
So you
um,
knew pretty much right away you didn't want to be like a nobody rifleman. Like you wanted to be in an NCO position.
yep, 100%, and specific to platoon sergeant. Like that's where I wanted to be.
God damn, did you
Uh,
achieve that?
I wanted to be a gunny because I just gunny Heckman just sounds good. Sounds real good to
That's
me.
because it's close to Gunny Highway.
True. So I really, really, really wanted to be a gunny, but at that time, in the unit, you had to be the company gunny, and I didn't want to step into that. And to be honest, I don't think it was ever offered to me. Might have been. I don't remember.
Probably
But
was.
but I've been here. I was one of the. It was as far as the 506 goes. I was the 12th person in the unit. Uh, when the unit was stood up, I was there in the 15th during talks of the unit being stood up. For all US1 people, anybody that's out there, the original spreadsheet was my work that I stole from the 15th. So that was me that did that, and yeah, and then I joined the 506 and got to do some army shit and be a platoon sergeant again, and it was I had way more fun in the 506 than I did in the 15. That's for sure.
Well, and the thing that I guess real quick to go back to Yogi, Yogi, what was it about ArmA specifically? Like, have you always been into military style stuff? Because you don't have a military background, but have you always been into like military shooters and stuff like that? Or was it just, hey, it's a game to play with a lot of other people and my buddy Lee's is playing it?
Well, like I said before, the whole reason why I joined the unit was because of Lee's.
Right.
And then before that, I didn't really have much interest in shooters or anything military to begin with. Like I just gave it a go, and then it was just pure enjoyment. Like the very first op that I did, I filled in for 1.4. Like I still remember that mission, like minute by minute, and that was like the best mission I've done in the unit. So like, even though I have no military experience whatsoever, Christ, thank God for that. Um, I would just say from the first few experiences in the unit, it was just the biggest draw for me. And even then, like recently, like the whole thing was just been pure enjoyment for me.
And now, so the reason I bring that up is to jump back to you, Heckman. I know that you have ties to the military through your family, and some of you guys listening have probably heard me and Heckman on a couple of streams talking about his mom and how much of a badass she is. But that's kind of your main tie, I guess, if you will, to the military and other members of your family. So is that what really kind of piqued ArmA for you, was that you already had interest in the military and stuff because of your family ties?
Well, 100%. I've always been a fan of all things military, tactics, weapons, systems, like all of it. Because movies and things. I mean, my favorite movies, if you take my top 10, I think like 7 of them are probably gonna be war movies. With Saving Private Ryan, anchoring itself is my clear and favorite number one. Followed second by Sister Act, but
Well, yeah.
that's then you get like, so I just always
That's just because of Brandy.
oh 100%. So to me, that's I've always just had that kind of love of the military, and ArmA is the only game that gives you that. It was just fantastic, and the leadership in everything that you can exude in a video game is something. And as both of you know, because both of you were under me when I was a platoon sergeant.
Oh, I'm still under you on a good day.
But that's one thing that I always wanted my platoon to share. That part of ArmA. It's about more than just executing your tactics correctly, because anybody will tell you, I mean, while I can execute a tactical plan, that's to me was second to
Yeah, that's a byproduct.
yeah, to when we role play, I role play that we're a platoon that cares about one another. Um, uh, that we take care of each other, that because it triggers down and makes things more fun. Like I said, when I was hooked, it was because all those people were freaking out that their buddies were shot up. Like, in the grand scheme of things, you think about it, really, it's like, who gives a shit? That motherfucker's just gonna respawn like that.
Yeah.
Who cares? But you care because you're role playing it out, like all the stuff that with us in Haymaker or in Havoc, we uh we just we cared about it. It was genuine. Like I made
Well,
so many
yeah.
friends that I still have today.
And that's, I mean, it's gonna sound fucking stupid, but you kind of were the, I guess, the catalyst uh for where it is today, where that mentality now spreads through the entirety of the company. It's not just one platoon, because back then in Havoc 1, like you said, we all cared about each other. We were a family. Some of the other platoons weren't quite as, I guess, hardcore about it. There wasn't that kind of relationship, and that came from the top. That came from you disseminating it down to us, not just squad leaders, not just team leaders, but even just a normal rifleman. I mean, when I first came into Havoc 1, I was a rifleman in 1-2 Bravo. I was a fucking nobody, but you still made damn sure to say hey, when you were in the channel with me, and we talked at great lengths many a times about that style of leadership and giving a fuck about your guys, and how much I guess how much more you can get out of the guys when they understand that you do care and you're here for them, not just to play a video game. And like you said, the personal relationships are real. And like Ollie's saying in chat, that Havoc 3 wasn't like that. But Ollie still got to experience that because he was like the permanent fill-in
Mm-hmm.
for Havoc 1-2. So even when he wasn't in 1-2, he was still in 1-2. So he still experienced that and still knew all those personal relationships. And like you said, it's still to this day, we're all friends. I mean, one of the first things I asked you today when you hopped in TeamSpeak was how Mom was doing. Because we talk about our families and what's going on with them, and we genuinely give a shit. It's not just, oh yeah, well I better ask him this so he'll talk to me or something. Like, no, we actually give a shit about what's going on in each other's lives, And like I said, a lot of that started, I mean, really all of it started with you. And now that all of us from Havoc 1 have kind of spread out and gone to our different areas and, are doing whatever it is we're doing now, that's now spread across the entire fucking unit. And that all started because one fucking platoon sergeant wanted to be like, I want to do it this way instead of just barking orders and, hoping shit gets done.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. To me, that's humbling to hear stuff like that. But I just wanted to do the game like I saw on in my favorite movies, because and from all the books and things that I read, because yeah, there's books about tactics and whatever, but the bulk of them are about the brotherhood and what it means to be a part of something. And even though we're not real military here, we do replicate it, and that's just one part of a lot of realism units that I don't see. That's the way I it's not like I created this sort of persona here in the 506, because I did it in the 15th as well, because I did have there were leaders that kind of did that same thing for me. I would rather my troopers wipe out a target than me. I would rather, if I go through my entire op and I never fire my rifle, but all the men around me are getting all the kills and doing what they need to do, that's fine by me. I'll give my ammo, I'll give up everything aside from my sidearm, and I have for my guys, so that they can do their thing, because there's just something about it that just makes me feel more connected to my guys. Like every little moment when we did the farm op, when we were all running out of ammo, and at no point prior to that did we feel super connected, particularly to our Apache, or to the Apache, right? Like, we knew they were there, but at that point I told our oh god, did we even have Dagger back then? I don't even think we did. I told the company commander, I was like, I go, tell the Apache that they are green. Anything outside of our little circle, they need to shoot
if
them.
If they don't start firing, we're all going to die.
Yep, and we saw it. We saw the rounds impacting on units that were 300 meters away from us. We got to feel that kind of excitement, that connection, because that's what it's all about. What made Coke so good as a A10 pilot was how connected he was to us on the ground. And everything that I've ever read, everything documentaries that I've seen, they're the grunts of the sky, right? They're connected to the guys on the ground. And a lot of times an A-10 pilot in Afghanistan will be flying around doing their shit, and then there'll be troops in contact, right? And then they'll be in direct, talking to squad leaders on the ground.
Yeah, they're in direct communication with the guys that they're fucking saving.
Mm-hmm. And that shit is just, like that gets my pee-pee wet right there.
Yeah, and that's like, I've seen, documentaries with A-10 pilots talking about, communicating with the guys on the ground and saying, when I can hear the stress in their voice, that brings it home for me. I'm no longer up in the air sitting alone in my cockpit. I'm down there on the ground with those guys, basically emotionally. So, yeah, and like you said, that's what made Coke and now Soto so good as pilots is because of that connection they had to the guys on the ground. And again, that all of that was bred from that mentality that we as a platoon had. The entirety of Havoc 1 shared that same mentality throughout. And I'll always remember, and I've talked about this a couple times on the podcast, one of the very early FTXs that I was ever involved in was what we refer to now as the Rosman Mile. And it was just an outstanding FTX all around. And getting chased out of there with the mortars, amazing. Not amazing, like it was a terrifying experience at the time, but it was very immersive. And then when word gets down to us that you motherfuckers are down in the valley, face down in the dirt, we all immediately stopped. We didn't keep running for the bird. We were like, yeah, there's mortars coming in, but, you know, either we all die or we all go home. There was no, like, gray area, like, well, maybe we should send one team back. And no, it was like, we all come out of here or none of us are. So I'll never forget, we were on the ridge line overlooking the valley in this rubble, and I'm looking out over the fucking valley, and I can see all the smoke down in the valley. And I'll always remember Wishdif coming over the radio saying, Bravo, I want you to put as much fire into that valley as you possibly can. Run your weapons dry. We're going to get 1-7. And him and Alpha
disobeying a direct
order to leave. Now, this would set about a trend that would continue on later in my 506th career. But him and Alpha, which was run by Franklin at the time, it was Franklin, Hammer, Hammond, and I believe Williams was there at that point, maybe not. But the five of them went down into the valley and pulled HQ out. And we all got back to the bird together. And it was an amazing experience. Like I said, being one of my very early FTXs, to be like, holy fuck, these guys are, you know, like they actually care. I know that we've been ordered to get back to the birds. The entire task force is extracting. And this squad leader is saying, fuck that. I'm going to get platoon HQ. I'm not leaving without him. And that stuck with me. It stuck with me so much so that my very first FTX as a squad leader, as 1-4, kind of the same situation. We assaulted this town, and we bit off a chunk that we couldn't chew, and we got the order to extract. And Yogi was there for that. And we start pulling back, and I got word over the radio that Heckman was down, and he was basically surrounded. And we were the last squad, because we were peeling back by squads, and everybody else had already peeled. It was our turn to move. So I had to make the decision. Am I going to get the rest of my squad out of here, or are we going to get Heckman? I went to get Heckman. So I ordered half my squad to sit down and lay down as much covering fire as they could, and I took the other half, and we went and grabbed Heckman. We got up there, and we were immediately surrounded. I mean, we had guys within 10 meters of us popping around corners of buildings and shit, and it turned into a shit show real quick. But we got Heckman up, and as we started running away, Heckman took a couple rounds in the legs, I remember, and he was like, I can't run, just leave me, just go. And of course I said no. You know, we immediately dropped to a knee, turned around, and started laying down more covering fire, and I was like, just bandage yourself up. We're here. We're not going anywhere. So we got bandaged up, we pulled back, and luckily the entirety of the squad was able to make it out unharmed, even though Lee's ended up running his machine gun dry.
Out of ammo, and picked up a DMR.
Yeah, he ended up picking up an enemy DMR and engaging with that. But it was very much so the same situation as, you know, in the Rosman Mile, where I had the order to move back. They were telling me on the radio, pull your squad back, pull your squad back. And I came back over the radio and said, no, I'm going to get Heckman, or I'm going to get 1.7. So, all of that just basically came out of that mentality of actually giving a shit about each other.
Well, that's actually a perfect example. ArmA is specifically realism units and playing. It is what you put into it, because if without the actual genuine care about your guys, like these stories kind of don't mean a whole lot, because then if they would have just followed the orders, they would have just left me, and there's no story to be had at that point. But if you look at it, because I like hearing about things from because you only really know your perspective, right? Because that's what you lived. That during the Rossman Mile, that when that whole thing happened, and you might see a trend occurring of Heckman being behind, and being
Heckman
shot,
getting dropped behind everyone else.
It's because I was always the last person to leave. I always made sure that everybody else was able to get out. I actually wasn't in the Rossman Mile. We truly had a squad that was cut off. I think
you guys were going in to get them.
Yeah, so me and the company commander, Captain Whippy at the time, he's just like, I think you got a guy down over here. And I was just like, oh, no big deal. I was like, let's go grab him, you and me. So then Whippy's like, no, you stay here, I'll go get him. And I was like, I don't think that's safe, but whatever. So Captain Whippy pokes up and he starts running towards my guy that's downed in this like little open clearing. At the same time, there was a BMP or BTR rolled straight up and chunked him. I mean, if this was real life, I would have been covered in Captain's blood and guts, because I just watched him get mowed down in front of me. And it was at this point that the armor started rolling in towards me, and I'm getting shot and all this stuff, and Captain's already down, so it is what it is, right? I'm going to go down. So I give the order to Brewer's squad leader, be prepared to take over, because I'm going down. I already got shot a couple times. I was slow moving at this point. My legs were all done. And he's just like, not going to happen. I was like, get out of here. Get him onto that bird. I was just like, you're going to be the guy. Now, after a couple seconds, smokes are all around me that I managed to throw around and other people had thrown from, their... Now, this moment is one of the greatest moments in my ArmA career, because I've like moving. I think everybody who plays ArmA knows that kind of crouched, slow move that you do when you're kind of wounded. Well, I'm doing this, and out of the smoke, I see 1-2 start pushing through, and Vishov's squad, and I can hear him say that line that Brewer says. He goes, run out of ammo, everything you got, put it down there, because we're gonna get 1-7. And his men just started mowing shit, just a firing line, and they didn't give two shits about me. They pushed right past me to create that wall.
They didn't walk up and grab you and like, all right, we're getting out of here. Like, no, they pushed up, created a fucking wall of fire for you to get out from.
And I let them know, I was like, your captain's down, 15 meters back that way. So they grabbed not only me, but they also grabbed the captain. They leave that part out of the story, but they grabbed the captain as well. And they grabbed the, I believe it was a medic, I'm pretty sure that was down, that we were originally trying to get. But ultimately, we got everybody out on that mission. Hell, we still had one player that was like left behind, and there was some drama with jumping out of the Bradleys. But whatever, that mission means so much to me personally, and it wouldn't mean shit if I didn't care about like my guys and stuff like that.
Well, and like you said, in the grand scheme of things, if you just die, so what? You respawn. Like, who gives a shit? If we didn't have that connection, if we didn't care, so what? You died in a video game. Nobody gives a shit. But because we had that connection, there was no fucking way in hell anything was stopping us from getting you guys out of that valley. We would have fucking eventually, had we not pulled you back and Alpha and squad lead had gone down, the entirety of the task force would have turned back. Even if they didn't get orders from the task force commander, at that point, the squad leaders would have taken the initiative and said, no, we're going back to get the rest of our guys. We're not getting on this bird.
Yep, you get what you put in, and I would advise to any future team leaders, squad leaders, platoon sergeants, platoon leaders, remember those moments, because they're not just going to be great for you and your experience in the unit. They're going to be great for the people underneath you. When we did the mission where we were stuck at the barn and we did the hottest extract we've ever done, I'm pretty sure in unit history that shit was lit. Yeah. When we did that operation, there was, I can't even remember who it was, but it was their first operation, just this bullshit little private, and I hope it's probably like somebody else.
Right, he's somebody that totally outranks you now.
So, but he was, we were all sitting like in this, there was the barn, there was like a little opening, there was some hay bales and shit that gave us cover.
Yeah, those hay bales were fucking, that, if it wasn't for those hay bales, we'd have been fucked.
Oh, 100%.
Like, thank God for bulletproof hay bales.
There was a private that took it, we had our 360 up and he had the rear. So he was looking around the corner of the barn. And I walked up to him, because he's doing his job. There's a bunch of fighting going on right behind him, but he's maintaining his sector discipline. And I'm really impressed by that. So I get up behind him. I was like, anybody comes around this corner, you fucking shoot him. Okay? Because without you, we're all going to die. And then like I always wish that ArmA had like a pat on the helmet emote,
right?
Just because at that moment I would have, you're doing good, trooper. It's like, we're gonna get out of this. That little moment made this trooper's fucking day. You know what I mean? That interaction with me, and I constantly, and everybody will tell you in Havoc 1, I went around to all the squads, to different teams. Hey, you guys okay? You guys got your ammo? You guys good? All of that comes from me role playing that scene in freaking We Were Soldiers. When he was up on the front line,
right.
You guys gave him hell. Like, I mean, that's gave me so much joy, like doing small things like that, because it made me feel connected to my men, and I know that they responded to it. And I was filling in, the last time I filled in, I don't know, maybe few months ago, Sergeant Richie, he's that guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could hear him outside the building that I was in talking. He's like, you guys doing okay? You guys good? You guys good here? Like, I was like, fuck yeah, gave me goosebumps. Love that shit. And even if you're not that sort of guy, still try to do those little things, because it really does pay dividends to your team, to your squad, to your platoon. Like, it means a whole lot.
Yeah, and that's where, again, that kind of mentality, I guess, trickled down from you, because like you said, you were always the last guy out, and I've always done the same thing. I still do the same thing as a task force commander. Like, I've had guys in the stream ask me before, why do you always wait to get on the helicopter, like when we're extracting or whatever? I'm always the last guy in the bird, and before we step off, I always go to aviation and say, which one of these birds is setting down first? That one? Okay, I'm going on that one. I'm going on the ramp. I'm always on the ramp of the first bird that's touching down. And I'm always the last guy to get in the bird. And, some guys think it's stupid because I'm the command element. I should not be putting myself in that kind of danger and shit. But it's that, I guess, I need the security of knowing all of my guys are good. I have to know, I'm the first guy on the ground. I never expect to tell guys to go do something that I wouldn't do myself. So I would never say, you're getting off the bird first if it's a hot extract. No, fuck, I'm going out first, because if I wouldn't do it, I'm not going to tell you to do it. And when we're leaving, I have to know without a shadow of a doubt, every single one of those guys is accounted for in that bird, and they're safe before I will step onto that ramp. Because if there's even the tiniest possibility that there's one guy still sitting out there in the woods, everybody's coming out of that fucking bird. I'm going to wave that thing off, and we're going to get him. I don't give a shit how crazy the extract is, how much stuff we have bearing down on us. We all come home or nobody does. It's that simple. And again, it may sound stupid, but that's because of that mentality of actually giving a shit about each other. And
Yep.
you know, and Heckman was always he was always that platoon sergeant that linked himself up with the rifle squads, the assaulting squad. He never sat up on a hill and overwatched things. No, he was right there in the shit next to us. And the biggest example, again, something that we've talked about before, was when we were in Electro, when we assaulted Electro, and we were at the train station. And I talked about this not that long ago when I tried killing a T-72 with an Igla. By the way, it doesn't work, so don't try it. But I mean, Heckman was platoon sergeant. I mean, he's platoon HQ. He was laying down in between the concrete fucking pads at the train station. He was laying down on the train tracks right there next to us saying, well, if you guys go, I'm going with you because I ain't going nowhere. And that has always stuck with me as far as, you know, leadership goes. You know, if you're not willing to put yourself in the same situation that those guys are in, you don't deserve to be in that position that you're at. It's just, and I could never imagine ordering guys, hey, go clear that house, if I'm not willing to do it myself. It doesn't compute with me, I guess.
Yep. And just like, you know, reading through your chat here, again, I realize that I'm playing a game and we're all playing a game and whatever, but when it comes to getting enjoyment about what you're actually doing within that game, like again, I could have the best op. That Rossman Mile op, I don't think I fired my rifle. If you tally up on the amount of kills that I've gotten as platoon sergeant, it is probably close to freaking 50, whereas other guys can get that in a freaking op. I prefer to be with my guys. Like hell, I remember one time where there was a I don't know, just like a bunker with guys in it. I had eyes on it. I could have started shooting at it, but I called over one of your MG teams. Hey, light that shit up. Freaking, you know, make that shit sing, and there you go. Because who does that mean more? I could kill those guys. Don't even call it up because, well, I'm already at the top, you know. But it meant something to be connected to your platoon sergeant, having him give you an order to freaking mow those guys down. You know, to hear your platoon sergeant say, "Hey, if anything crosses this fucking street, you fucking wax them." Because if they get it in on our fucking flank, we're done. You know, that means something. Like to people, because they feel like they're part of like the experience. So that's part of what I was selling, and I damn well enjoyed it. I liked replicating some of the better leaders that I've seen, like in you know, books and in movies and stuff. Like Hal Moore. You have to be with your men in order to lead them. You have to be with them where the metal meets the meat.
Yeah.
And with so I was always I remember when Lieutenant Avery took over in the very first op. Yeah, he took me off of that. Like, I was no longer part of the assault element. That was him.
Yeah.
And it killed me. It absolutely slayed me. He got chewed up trying to take a castle.
Yeah. But that's where, like, even now as task force commander, like, it's very difficult oftentimes to really get in the shit like I want to be with the guys, because I'm on the radio so much, and it's hard to, you know, open up my tablet and be looking at things and coordinating everything and running shoulder to shoulder with the guys. But even then, like, when I am able to pull it off and I'm clearing buildings right alongside a random rifle squad, and, you know, I've got, you know, Private so-and-so on my 6 ready to breach a fucking building with me. And I'm like, hey, I'm going left, you go right. Or, you know, if we're moving down the front of a building, I'm like, cover my right. You know, this is a guy that's fucking 4 steps below me in the chain of command. He's working right alongside me, even though I'm the task force commander. And I love that. I absolutely love that, being able to go in and clear buildings with the guys, or, you know, cover a sector with the guys. Because, you know, at the end of the day, my job is technically the same as theirs. I'm still there to, you know, get rid of the bad guys. But like you said, if I'm sitting there and we're in like a defensive position, and I see guys that are 600 meters out there. Yeah, I could engage them with my M4, or I could call a guy over there with a 240 and just let him lay waste to him, and I can just, sit there and watch and
I've
enjoy the
seen
show.
you do that in streams that I've watched. I've seen you acquire targets with your freaking thermals. You're more than capable of engaging them and putting them all down, but you call over an MG or whatever to put them down. I've seen both you and Captain Drumheller at various occasions go in and be like, "Hey, I need like." Say you have a special task that you need to do, secure a building, whatever. Like, give me a couple of your shooters. I need to do this. Like, that's huge as a freaking task force commander, like for that team or that squad that you temporarily take control of. Like, that shit is just like awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
one night in one of the deployment missions, we had Trey, who was one of the pilots, get shot down by a Zeus cannon. And he was about a click away from us or so, and he started running towards us. And Dagger was in communication with him, and I told him, like, just tell him to keep running towards us. I'm going to grab a rifle squad, and we're going to go get him. And Cherry was right there, and I didn't even use the radio passing it through Platoon HQ or nothing. I went up to Cherry and said, hey, let Platoon HQ know that we're going to get this pilot. Let's go. Me, you, and your squad. Come on, we're out of here. And we fucking went and grabbed Trey and, brought him back to the bird with guys chasing us the entire time. But it was a matter of, we got to get this done. I don't have time to go through all the bullshit. Cherry, let's go. Your squad knows what they're doing. Come on. We're going on a fucking mission. But to kind of correlate this, to go to Yogi, who you've been squad leader for a little bit now, do you still kind of see that same mentality, or do you still practice that same mentality now that you're in a squad lead position? Because you've seen that mentality and all of that play out from when you were in 1.4 and when you were, a lowly donkey, if you will, and now you're in a position, being a squad leader where you have more impact on that. Do you still see that type of stuff going on?
Yeah, absolutely, especially in 3.4. Like, for me, I try to keep everyone happy and make sure everyone's having fun, which is the whole point, really. But, yeah, especially in 3.4, everyone can work together, and what I like the most about this unit is, say you join the unit, you assign to a squad, you have no idea who these people are. You just grab your gear, grab your loadout, line up next to these guys, and they'll look after you. You won't have to know these guys, but they'll be like your brothers and sisters, which I absolutely love, and it's more the case in 3.4 where everyone looks out for each other. It doesn't matter
Yeah,
if they know you or not, they look out for each other.
and that's, you mentioned keeping the guys happy, and that's, I've had people comment on it before as to why, like, oftentimes, we'll be telling jokes and dropping one-liners and shit like that, and especially, like when I'm around Richie, like me and Richie start riffing on each other back and forth a lot. And guys are kind of confused by that. Like, you're supposed to be taking this super seriously, and we are. But the thing is, you have to kind of crack that wall a little bit, because if you get too serious with it and you don't have a little bit of fun, if you don't tell some jokes and so on, then the morale starts dropping, and just a simple joke about somebody's mother or something can be enough to make everybody laugh.
Yeah.
And then it's not, oh fuck, we're getting our asses kicked. It's, hey, we're having a good time, we're gonna get out of this, and even if we don't, fuck it, we're going down with a smile on our face, which is what happened at that train station in Electro. There was no reason whatsoever for us to find it funny when Hammond closed the fucking doors of the train station and said, it's okay, he can't see us now. But we all just bust out laughing. And some people might have yelled at us for doing that. But at the time, if you can't laugh at that, your head's just going to fucking explode. And yeah, go ahead.
You'd be surprised how far a bit of laughter will help a few guys in your squad, say considering if it's like a stressful mission or like a mission where your ass is just being thrown at you, you'd be surprised by one little laugh that might just help squad morale just go straight back up and carry on like nothing's happened.
Yeah, exactly. And like as Kyle mentioned in chat, and me and Shannon talked about before, real life experience. Like you can be in a pretty shitty situation and have bullets flying around, and somebody will crack a joke. Like you can't take it that serious all the time. It's just impossible. You'd fucking explode. Um, it's just one of those things you have to do. Kind of like watching somebody hit a BTR with an AT4 and yelling outstanding and then clapping your hands.
I will say that that's one thing that I definitely disagree with you both. I was always super serious.
Yeah.
I never really cracked a whole lot of jokes while I was platoon sergeant. So.
I still to this day, aside from the outstanding and clapping the hands and then shooting the wall, I still to this day, even though it comes from a very shitty situation, the greatest line I have ever heard said on a radio in ArmA was during the bridge mission when the tank cuts off the convoy and 1-1 is up front, and
Yep.
Sherry comes over the radio and or actually I think it was Clarky at the time, I can't remember for sure, but comes over the radio and says, we got a fucking MBT up front or something like that, and Heckman as 1-7 comes over platoon net and just says, of course, and that's it. Nothing else, no order given, no nothing, just of course. It was just so fucking good because you could, we can, look back at it now and laugh, but at the time, like you could hear the defeat in Heckman's voice, and we hadn't even really started the mission yet. Not a single round has left anybody's barrel, and it was just, of course, it's. Here we go. Another night of just getting fucking anal rapage for the next 2.5 hours. Great.
Well, that was definitely getting towards the end, huh? Of my platoon sergeantness, but yeah, definitely, making sure that everybody is like having a good time and it is loose and not like super uptight, because you never want to feel like if you make a tiny mistake that you're gonna get reamed, because the uppers were gonna chew us apart anyways, no matter what, and they would say whatever they said regardless. And as a platoon sergeant, and anybody that was in Havoc 1 will tell you that the second that our company commanders or anybody that was the higher ups would say, hey, you guys did this, I was always the first one to say, oh, that was my call, that's my bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 100%, sorry. My fault. And we get into our platoon, hey, what were you thinking? That was you dummy. Don't do that again. But I would keep that stuff, like keep the eyes on me. That it was my order. Don't worry. Like, sorry about that. What have you? Because I hated like how we were held to like some like ridiculous standard when we're getting blown up running out of bandages for like 10 straight missions.
Yeah,
and they want to critique that our formation was a little sloppy.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
As we're getting attacked by a platoon of fucking tanks.
It's those sort of things, just you got to find the humor in it. One of the strats that I used all the time was with brand new privates, their first operation with us. I would always be like, okay, you're gonna lead the debrief. Yeah. They would have no. They'd be like, huh, what? And I'm like, just kidding, or whatever. If they had a weird name, I would always acknowledge them in a silly way. Whoever the new people were, because they needed to feel like from their team is going to accept them, their squad is going to accept them, sure, but is their platoon HQ, like, I mean, think about it. Have you seen your platoon HQs reach out to the new privates? Because that was really important to me, to make sure they felt from the top to the bottom that they were part of this thing that we had going on, and I loved it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that because like obviously I'm the hard ass. I'm the one that's gonna yell at everyone. So when they do it right, I have to like really search for a mistake that was made. So I will like nitpick on very fucking minute things. Like Saturday, which is the operation you guys are watching now, Havoc 3 did a fucking outstanding job with that convoy. Like, they genuinely impressed me. And I told them, like, you guys did a good job, but you made these mistakes because you're never going to learn anything if they just tell you, yep, you did great. And that's it. Like, there's always stuff that can be improved upon. But there was no need for me to tear them apart on anything because they didn't make any major mistakes, you know. And I think a lot of the time, guys will assume that I'm like, okay, we're getting debrief. First sergeant's about to tear our ass open. Yeah, that's gonna happen. Like, I'm gonna bust your ass on any mistakes that you make that I seen, solely because of the fact, well, one, we got our asses tore apart when we were up against insanely high odds. And not to say that, you know, other platoons now have to hold themselves to higher standards because we went through it worse or some stupid shit like that. But I understood better how that relationship worked after moving to a company HQ position, because unfortunately, we don't have the ability to be as attached as, say, like a platoon sergeant. So, like, when, say, I point out that, hey, you guys you did this, and this wrong. And then that platoon sergeant, as I got a kid screaming, Jesus. Then that platoon sergeant steps up and says, that was my call. And then they go into the debrief and do exactly like you said. And that platoon sergeant says, well, why did you guys do this, and this? Don't fucking do that again. You know, the first sergeant's going to bust our balls on that. Now that relationship is there. Those guys know that platoon sergeant is looking out for them, is covering their ass. And the whole reason I bring that up is Sekta, the guy from our Sikta or whatever, from Generation Kill. The guy that everybody hated. Because when he busted somebody's balls, their direct superior was like, hey, don't do that. I got your back. And then they had that relationship, and I was like, so that's what it is to be the guy that everybody has to hate because he's going to nitpick every little thing. It makes that relationship with their immediate COC that much stronger. I was like, motherfucker, that actually makes sense.
It's different for you too as company HQ, because you, like I said, you see the entirety of everything, right? So like, and it's easy for me if you see like a squad moving and maybe they don't put smoke down, right? So as company, you're like, this needs to be addressed, whereas on the platoon level, it's like, well, shit, that could only been like one team, you know what I mean, that like it was forced to do that. It's not like the entire platoon like was out there like not throwing around smoke.
And
so
we can't address it at a squad level. We have to address it at the entire task force, and then it's on you guys, on platoon HQs, to take care of it kind of individually, if you will.
Exactly. So I did always understand like that aspect of it, and it is, like I said, it's just a different ball game for it. But plus, when we would get reamed, that was an opportunity for my men to see me, lay on the sword, if you will, for them, which strengthened my bond with them. So like, if you're not up there chewing some ass, you know what I mean? Like, because I've seen some freaking debriefs where a platoon commander or platoon sergeant throws their troopers under the bus. I've seen that.
I can't fucking stand that. And I've had that happen before, where someone starts to say, well, so and so decided they were gonna do. No, motherfucker, no, don't you dare try and pass off the fucking buck to them.
I've heard them say before that, first sergeant, I'm sorry, but I never gave him that order. What? I know you might not have. But who
You're
are you
still fucking
protecting at that point,
responsible
you
for it.
scumbag? And I'm pretty sure those people are no longer leaders.
Well, that's
But
like even Saturday, because Drum was Zeusing Saturday, and he had this whole thing set up for us to basically get ambushed by these guys. And he had messaged me beforehand and said, "Hey, I need you to take a left at this spot, so you can go into the area I need you to go to." Which that happens quite often. Zeus and operators and task force commanders in an FTX are in pretty, not constant, but we communicate back and forth with each other so that things go the way we need them to, as far as we go to the areas we need to. And I completely misunderstood him, and so we go left when he wanted us to go straight and turn left later on, completely circumventing this fucking ambush that he had, and we end up flanking the guys that he had set up to ambush us, and just fucking annihilated all of them. And he even said in his stream before he brought it up in the debrief, he says, "Watch, when I bring this up, the first sergeant's going to say that was my call." And sure as shit, when he brought it up, I was like, "Yeah, that was my call to turn left there." And like afterwards, I was like, "Yeah, can't say they did anything wrong. They were following, my orders. I told them to turn left. It's not their fault that we inadvertently outsmarted your ambush. That's my call to make all fucking day long."
Yep.
Yeah.
Stay fluid.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, they did a fucking outstanding job. There was very few fucking faults that I could find with anything that they did. But again, it's my job to find even that tiniest minute fault. Now, correlating it back to when we would get our asses chewed by Company HQ, like the one I very specifically remember was, it was a convoy operation, and we were the last Vic as 1-4.
Oh my god.
And we got left behind twice. And I'll never forget, because I had to bite my tongue like a motherfucker. I was operating the vehicle radio, and I come over the radio and said, "Hey, this is the last Vic. You guys are leaving us behind. Halt the convoy." And the first sergeant at the time, fucking DeVries, comes over the radio and says, "Well, catch up."
Try and catch up, yeah.
Yeah, try and catch up. And they just kept moving the convoy. And I was so close to losing my shit that a first sergeant would be that fucking reckless to not give a shit about one of his squads, one of his fucking vehicles are getting left behind. He gave the order to move that fucking convoy without knowing for damn sure that all of his vehicles were loaded up, ready to go. And on top of that, he's not even going to stop the convoy. He's just going to fucking tell us, "Hey, try and catch up." And after that FTX, I immediately went into a fucking meeting, well, a quote-unquote meeting. Whitby, who was the company commander at the time, came down and talked to me and said, "Hey, what's going on?" And I explained to him everything that was going on, and then they went back and talked to DeVries, and within like fucking 24 hours, he put in his retirement. And it just blew my mind that someone that would bust our balls for, not keeping up 360-degree security when we have 36 fucking guys down out of a 40-guy platoon would fucking say, "Well, just try and catch up." And I was like, that's like hypocrisy on a whole nother fucking level, dude. Like, that's not acceptable in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, another quick comment, and that is, like, if he left us behind and, like, during the end of it, he's like, "Okay, my bad, that was my mistake." But even during that debrief, like, the whole of 1-4 was just
he said we were wrong.
Yeah, he kept blaming the whole of one, and the whole squad was livid. We wanted, like, we put like C's and Q's, and we want to give our point of view, and like you just told us to drop it, so we shut up.
Yeah, that's everybody was ready to fucking go off, and I was like, "Hey, let it go. I'll take care of it."
Because I remember I was driving the Vic, and I had to sort of follow this amazing
back
route
up the hills and shit.
Oh, I would say to one, if you're making a convoy route, read the fucking map, because Jesus Christ, the route that we took that day.
The whole reason, that I did that when I was like, just let it go, I'll take care of it, because Heckman had done the same thing to me. We had been dealing with this shit for months and months and months, and Heckman would do the same thing. He would tell us, like, "Hey, I know you guys are pissed off. You guys did not fuck up. I'll take care of it." And he did. I mean, it continued to go on, but Heckman did as much as he possibly could in his position to make things better for us. And that, again, that's, I guess, another mentality that always kind of stuck was, hey, don't fucking worry about it. Brush it off. I'll take care of it. We'll get this shit squared away. You guys, you guys are good. And that, at least I hope, is what still continues to happen. Like, even when guys feel like they got their fucking asses reamed by me, then it's on, the platoon HQ, the squad leaders, and so on to address that at an individual level. Because, like I was saying before, we have to address it across the entire task force. So it could be a single motherfucker that I seen engaging a fucking BMP with a 40 mic. I then have to ream the entire fucking task force because I'm not going to single that guy out in front of the whole task force. It's very, very, very fucking rare that I'll single an individual person out at a task force debrief because that's just a dick move. I'll address it across the entire fucking task force, and then I'll let it get more individual as it goes down in the levels. So that's where, like, a lot of times, well, I assume, which is stupid to do, but I assume that, task forces think, well, God, why is he got to be fucking, he's got to be a dick. We didn't do that. We did not, drop our sector. We didn't do such and such. You probably didn't. It was one fucking guy or one team or whatever that I seen do it. But I have to address the task force as a whole because I'm not going to call that person out individually. And Heckman, I don't necessarily ever remember you calling out anyone individually at platoon level debriefs either. Like, I remember you at a squad level, like after debriefs and stuff, coming and saying, hey, this happened, don't do this, or whatever. But I don't remember you, like, calling anyone out at a platoon level. Not that I remember.
No, it was mostly like when I would speak to just the squad leaders, I'd be like, hey, you guys need to do this, or you guys need to do, this, more quickly. But a lot of it for me, like, luckily, is I had squad leaders that had their heads on straight. So typically, things like throwing smoke or formations or covering your sectors wasn't something that I particularly cared to go over. Because you guys did a pretty good job of taking it. Like, if one of your teams didn't use smoke, then you guys are right up their ass, so I didn't have to be. The one thing that I cared about was the platoon as a whole and things that we did, and that
staying close to each other. Like, I'll always remember that was, anytime, it was pretty rare that we all would get very separated because we did like to stay very close to each other. That's because of, you always telling us to. But on the rare occasion where, we'd have, like when I was 1-4, I primarily worked real closely with Cherry at 1-1 or Clark at 1-1 because they were usually the assault element. But, like, if we had, if 1-2 was like 300 meters out away from everybody else, it was very quick. You were on the radio, hey, 1-2, pull your ass back, or hey, 1-3, pull your ass back. You're too far away from everybody else. And that, that was kind of the one thing that I always remember. If we screwed up just the tiniest bit there, like if we got just a little bit too far away from each other, you were generally pretty quick on pulling the reins back and saying, hey, get your asses back here to the rest of us.
Yeah, and that's very specific to, or was very specific to Havoc 1. Like, if you look, I mean, you can just look and see previous task force with op orders, and you'll see, this squad is like fucking, 2 clicks this way, and this squad is like 2 clicks that way, which is whatever. I mean, we're trying to do what, like, a company does with one platoon, but the way that I like to do things was was more in line with a realistic sort of where guys are
platoon
close
size element.
Because if 1-1 is doing whatever often in their little area and they need assistance, I need all 3 of those squads to be in a position where they could potentially,
where any one of them can help.
Exactly. So I wanted us to be more and if you notice, when we cleared a town, we cleared that shit so fast because we were just like a fucking wall of just goddamn aggression.
I was going to bring up. We had talked a while back about that one video I have of platoon training of us going through and clearing a town. And it's where that video of "Bye-bye Bitch" comes from, when Munson takes out the T-72 with the Jav.
Yes.
But a while back, we were talking about that training and how much us squad leaders were talking to each other. We weren't talking to you and Avery much at all. Like, we were relaying information as far as like where enemy troops were and shit like that. But as far as like movement and who was moving and stuff like that, we didn't run any of that shit through you guys. We coordinated that ourselves.
You kept each other in check.
Yeah.
You were like, hey, 1-3, slow up a little bit because I can't see you. And this is what it, boils down to, the whole, like, care about your guys, not just your guys, but your platoon. So like, I specifically remember you saying like, hey, 1-3, slow down a little bit. I don't have your sectors covered. Like, you gave a shit what happens to 1-3. It wasn't just 4 individual squads completing their specific objectives. It was one platoon completing their objective. If in the future, in ArmA fucking 5 or whatever, we could have a whole company on a goddamn server, that shit would be so titties for freaking for command element, because they'll be able to treat platoons the way that I treated my squads.
Yeah, exactly.
And that means the squads the platoons becomes like tight. The way I like to run Havoc 1, that just fucking, that passion for unity, it's, to me, I never really I didn't shit on like other platoons when I look at their op order and they're all spread out.
No, you actually yelled at us for doing it.
Yeah, but that was specific to Havoc 1. Stay close, because plus what I noticed too is when we lose line of sight of one another, our communications, which at that time should be the strongest because you can't see shit,
it would fail.
It went out the window, and that, as you know, was a bugaboo for me.
And yeah, and that's like I was talking about in that training. We all were coordinating with each other as far as where we were moving and who was moving when and so on and so forth. And like you said, we gave a shit about what was going on with the other squads, to the point that, like, I think at one point, 1-1 had a BTR or something moving somewhere towards them. We had lost eyes on it or something. And it wasn't even a, hey, you guys take care of it yourselves. We were moving in the center of the formation. We were just locking down the MSR. So I immediately sent my weapons guys over and said, hey, go link up with them. If they can't take it out, something happens, take the shot, deal with it, and then come back. And then there was another point where I think there was a marksman ways out there engaging them. And I sent one of the MG teams over to, I think it was 1-3, and said, hey, link up with person over in 1-3, stick to his fucking hip. When he points out that marksman for you, take care of it, and then come back to me. And that kind of shit would happen quite a bit. Even when I was in 1-2, if there was a situation where, like, 1-1 or 1-3 had a bunch of guys that were wounded, it was nothing for Franklin to call up me and Hammer on the radio and say, hey, we're going to go, help out 1-1 or go help out 1-3. They got a bunch of wounded. Let's go. And it wasn't ran through platoon first. It wasn't like, hey, can we go help out 1-1? It was no, hey, this is 1-2, we're going to help 1-1. It wasn't like asking permission, can we go fucking pick up our buddies that are dying? It was, hey, we're going, I'm letting you know.
Oh yeah. And that was all fostered from the very beginning. That was, I would tell you guys in platoon trainings and FTX debriefs and all that shit. It's like, if you hear shooting that's going down, there's only one reason for that, and that's because your platoon is in contact. Now, you best believe, and you'll see it. You'll see it if you watch any video where when you hear that shooting start, and say you're watching from a platoon, even your perspective, you'll be like, what is the shooting? Like, why am I not hearing in my ear what's going down, right? Like, because that contact report needs to be sent up all the way up to you guys, right? Because we have troops in contact. But for us, it was different. I told you, it's like you take it personally. If somebody's shooting at a different one of your squads, you find them and you destroy them. Okay, so if 1-1 is in contact, the other 3 squads should be downright pissed.
Well, yeah, that was the thing though, is when, again, because 1-1 was primarily on point, like it'd come across the radio, this 1-1 we're being engaged by a squad size element, and you guys would just say, Roger or whatever. Generally it wasn't, okay, so and so move here, so and so move here. It was just, Roger, we got you, and then you guys start passing the information up to the task force commander, because you knew as soon as you said, or as soon as you were done receiving that order, one of the other 3 squads was about to come over that radio to 1-1 and say, hey, we're moving up here. And oftentimes it was us, because we're weapons, so we're going to push up and provide that base of fire. So it'd be me coming over the radio to 1-1, hey, we're rolling up behind you right now, make some room. And we'd set up, and then the other 2 squads, 1-2 and 1-3, 1-2 would be like, yep, we're flanking around to the left. Person would come over the radio and say, Roger, we got security. And that entire interaction would take all of 30 seconds for us to get that assault or so on going, while you guys were relaying the information to the task force commander. And by the time you guys got done and you're kind of back available on platoon net, if you will, we're already hitting the guys that were, engaging 1-1. Yep. And that specifically, the reason I bring that up is not that long ago, we were in an FTX, and I remember rolling up on this squad, and just on the other side of the hill they were behind, I could hear a fuck ton of fire going on, and these guys were just sitting there, like knelt down behind this hill, just hanging out. I'm like, what in the fuck are you guys doing? And they're like, we were told to hold this position. You have fucking friendlies in contact right over this hill. You can hear the AK fire. Move a fucking team up to the top of this hill, peek over the defilade, and shoot them motherfuckers. Like, yeah. Don't just sit here and listen to your friends get shot.
Well, and I get it. Like, if a squad comes under contact, like say we're doing movement through wooded terrain, right? So we're in a forest, what have you, and we come under contact, and you can't really see who's shooting at what or what have you, but you can hear the fire. Now, if your squad leader is in battle, it's hard for them to get on that radio and start. If they're literally
if they're in a firefight for their life.
But in those scenarios would happen. And what would happen here is I would sit there and I'd wait and I'd listen. And before I could even say, hey, you guys would know where you guys are, because I made sure you guys were close. You guys were always looking at your tablets and stuff. And you'd be like, hey, 1-3, we hear you're in contact over there. You all right? You need help? This is without me saying anything. And that's why we were able to do like as good as we were, because we eliminated a lot of the nonsense. If 1-4 was or 1-3 was like, I got an MBT, coming down the MSR, and here, blah 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 blah, right? In the full contact report. And then I was like, Roger that, 1-3. I'd be like 1-4, and you're like, on it. That's it.
Yeah, that was it. Like, because by the time you said Roger 1-3, I already had a fucking armor team going. I'd tell Charlie, like, hey, Charlie, go hunting. They're over here, and they're already fucking 50 meters away from me by the time you're saying 1-4, get on it.
Yep. And again, like for everybody, like listening, this stuff all enhances your enjoyment of what you do. Even though Yogi might not have heard this interaction between me and me and Brewer at that time, like he got the tail end, right? He got Brewer, hey, 1-4, we're tasked with this or that or whatever, like if it was MGs, because they were specific. We use them in specific ways to a lot of coverage and stuff. So like 1-4 to me never felt disconnected from Havoc 1. Like, and Yogi, I like you as a non-leadership at that time. Like I guess to ask you, like, did you feel like you were part of like the entire platoon, and that you were part of like what we were trying to do.
Oh, in 1.4, yeah, absolutely. Like everything that was happening, bro, was down on our radio saying, "Oh, 1-2 is in trouble with this direction. Alpha get over there," and then we would say what they're being engaged by what. We have we always had a clear understanding of what the sure fuck was going on around us, but we're never left in the dark, really.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we were usually, anytime contact started, I know I was generally the first one to, as far as the squads, I was the first one to come across the radio and say, I'm going. It was never I very, very fucking rarely ever asked, can I go help that squad? It was, I'm going to help that squad. I'm just making you aware that I'm going to help that squad. But again, because we were always so close, it wasn't a huge deal for me to move my guys 50 meters over here and help out 1-3 because we were pretty much there anyways. And, you know, once we got there and got everything squared away, got the threat dealt with or whatever, it was just instant, you know, all right, go back to whatever we were doing. It wasn't, okay, we're going to hang out here now for 30 minutes and wait for an order to tell us to move back. Like, no, I'm going back to where I was. I did my job. All right, let's keep on doing whatever it is we were doing. But something I want to point out here is, you know, when we, I guess, kind of reminisce about, you know, how we did things and stuff like that, it's not to be like, oh God, we were just so fucking good and like we were perfect and this and that. The thing that guys have
Far
to understand, yeah, we still fucked up. We still made mistakes. We still had guys die. Granted, we were up against some incredible fucking odds, but we still made mistakes. Like, I can go back and watch old videos and be like, God, why the fuck did you do that? But the reason we were, I guess, so smooth with it is because how much we worked together and how much we were around each other. You know, I've talked about this multiple times that us squad leaders, all four of us squad leaders, we were all very good friends. We hung out together all the fucking time, you know, and I've said on the podcast, back then, it was nothing to hop in TeamSpeak and there'd be 10, 15 people hanging out in one squad's channel just bullshitting. We're not doing an operation. We're not doing a training. We're just hanging out bullshitting, maybe playing some video games together. But that's why we worked so well together, because we were constantly with each other. We were always bullshitting with each other. So when that time did arise that, you know, person comes over the radio and says, this is 1-3, I'm being overrun, you can damn well believe the other 3 squad leaders on that platoon net are about to pipe up and say, we're coming. We're on our way. You know, no questions, no more information needed. We're on our way. And that's the way it was the entire time that we worked together. It was like that from the start to the very end. It was always the same way.
Yep.
But the thing that I found kind of interesting is the other night, Loster ran with us at a command level. He was hanging out with HQ basically as a battle buddy. And he had told me afterwards, he was like, you know, it's been a little while since I was kind of in it. And he's like, and, you know, to be at that high level where you're watching everything that's going on, watching all the moving parts and stuff. He said, you know, it was really cool. It was kind of almost like watching a watch be built. Just all the moving parts that were together and moving with each other and stuff. And I kind of, to take a step back and think about it, and some of the operations where I've been lucky enough to be able to just sit back and issue orders as a task force commander and not be up in the mix the entire time and just be kind of in an overwatch position and issuing orders and watching the squads move, and as the information gets down to them, watch them react to it. It is very fucking cool to watch that kind of dance that goes on from issuing that order to it going to platoon HQ to the squad to the teams, and watching it all kind of unfold is really fucking cool to watch. It's one of those where that's what makes it so special to have, a task force of 60 fucking people, 65 people doing, essentially the same mission. Everybody's got the same goal to do this, and to watch it all unfold and work together. I don't know anywhere else where I could do that.
ArmA's it. In
Yeah.
the 506 is really good at that particular, that providing that particular experience. The large unit tactics it's just impressive. It's impressive to watch. I mean, even if when you look at your tablet, as a platoon sergeant, or and I assume as company, as well, because you pay attention to even more because you're looking at the aircraft in the air and things like that. I don't really care. I don't care what the A-10 is as a platoon
As long
sergeant.
as it's there to save my ass when I need it.
Yeah, I just remember, in the early days of the 506, just a lot of your air support is off station because we had issues with refueling and rearming and things like
Or
that.
them
It's
getting
like,
shot down before the mission even began.
yeah, it's like you guys are always gone when we need you, and you're there when we don't want you. But that all that stuff kind of worked itself out. But yeah, to see, to just be able to look and then to watch a platoon, during that training you talked about where you were basically just, I was Zeusing or whatever the hell it was at the time. I don't think Zeus was a thing. Maybe it was. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
well,
But
you and Avery both were Zeusing. Like you were both doing it, just going back and forth. Because I remember like both of you would be in Zeus, and then one of us would call you on the radio to relay like troop position or something, and it would take a second. And I knew it was because you were getting out of Zeus and getting back to your character, and then you'd come up on the radio.
yep, and but I just remember watching, like, when you see those four, squares or diamonds moving, and as you see the one start to move out, they're a little, and then hey, 1-3, get back. So then they, just to watch how that works, not at the micro level, but at the macro level, is really cool to see how a platoon clears a town, to see how does this platoon set up their defensive posture once they've reached their objective. It's just something that's like really really different, and you got to give your platoon HQs and your company HQs and task force commanders a lot of credit, because they're just one human being. Like, they're just like when Captain Drumheller or First Sergeant Brewer or Lieutenant Hammersmain, when they're on the ground, they're just one dude that's on the ground, like boots on the ground, looking with the same fucking rifle, like all the same shit, and they're able to piece all that shit together. That's impressive shit. That is. I will give it that.
The other day, when we were doing this operation, this convoy, I was talking to my brother about it, because a lot of people watch ArmA operations for the comms. That's 90% of people. That's why they like it, is all the communications, the radio work. And my brother had commented about how we listen to multiple radio nets at the same time, and there was a point where I think it was before we even got in the vehicles that all the radio checks were starting and stuff at the start of the operation, or start of the FTX. And so, I had guys doing radio checks in my left ear, guys doing radio checks in my right ear, and I was responding to both. And he was like, dude, I don't know how the fuck you can do that, to like be hearing one thing in one ear, hearing something completely different in another ear, responding to both of them, and, be paying attention to what's right in front of your face. And I was like, well, tonight's the really fun night, because I've got company HQ net that I'm listening to and talking on with Dagger and my medic and stuff like that. So then I got company net where I'm talking to, Havoc 4 and Havoc 3, the platoon HQ and the mortar element. And then I also have convoy net where I'm coordinating all the vehicles in the convoy. So I'm listening to 4 different radio channels and talking on all 4 of them, basically simultaneously. And he was like, dude, I couldn't even begin to fathom how fucking confusing all of that is. And that's something that I've told guys, especially in OSA, is, you think it's hard to be in a firefight and listen to your radio at the same time when you're listening to one radio station. When you get up to a team leader level, it becomes even more difficult because now you're listening to 2 radio stations, but you got, the 3 guys in your fire team that could be trying to talk to you, and, your other fire team leader or your squad leader trying to talk to you in the other ear. Then, when you move up to a squad level and you get on what is the craziest fucking radio net we have, which is platoon net, now you're dealing with 3 other squad leaders, a platoon sergeant, and a platoon leader that could all be talking to you. Or you have one of your 2 team leaders or your medic that could be talking to you in your other ear. Or for us weapons guys, it really got nuts because you've got 4 fucking team leaders that could be talking to you or your medic. And then you've got the 3 other squad leaders and the platoon lead and platoon sergeant that could be talking to you in your other ear. That is when shit gets really hectic. When you're talking about, 10 plus people that could all need to talk at the same time, and 2 of them are contacting you at the same exact time.
Yep.
It gets really chaotic. And Yogi, you now know that feeling being a weapons squad leader. You now know how crazy it was for me to have 4 team leaders and a medic and be on platoon net. It's a lot of shit going on at once, ain't it?
It sure is. It was definitely a shocker to me. It was definitely a learning experience for me. Definitely something you get used to as time goes on.
Yeah,
for
it
sure.
takes time, definitely.
It is one of the weirdest things about ArmA in general. It's like all the formations and all the all that shit is like secondary. It's like learning your comms and being comfortable and being able to sift through the information that's coming into your ears. And you got to remember too, like especially as a squad leader, is that you're fighting. Like as a platoon sergeant, you could take the rifle out of my hands and it's whatever. But as a squad leader, you need your rifle in your hand. like
Yeah.
you're part of the volume of fire that your squad produces. So you're fighting and you're listening to all this. I will say being a squad leader here in the 506 is way easier than being one in the 15th, because in the 15th you did have 3 teams. So that's like being a team leader again. You have the 3 dudes just chattering in your ear hole and plus on platoon. But I'll say being a team leader, like when it comes to comms, because your team doesn't need like a lot of discipline, because they're just talking freely.
Yeah, it can be pretty chaotic.
It can be pretty fucking like up there. And I remember I had to tell, when I was a team leader, I had to tell some of my team a couple times, like, shut up. You guys just shut up.
Shut the
quick.
fuck up for a minute. And that's sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like with the teams, like even back then, like it was me, Cherry, and Valentino was the team, like all the team leaders in our squad, and God,
I can just imagine a Valentino scream coming across the radio.
But yeah, those are good times. But we had already, like, that's where the whole communication, our squad leader, which Sergeant Lieber at the time, he didn't want to micro us. He told us, he's like, hey, you communicate with each other. If one of you reaches a road, you communicate with the guy behind you. Hey, I'm going to cover you, cross, all that stuff. That stuff came from that particular situation. So when it came to communicating, I needed to hear my other team leaders. So we had a very active squad net. Some squad nets aren't that active because they're not talking to one another. But ours just happened to be. So at times I was like, team, shut up. Like I'm trying to listen to Cherry. Have you heard his voice? It's dreamy.
Right. Yeah. When Cherry, plus Cherry is always super relaxed. Like Cherry never gets excited about dick. One time have I heard Cherry get kind of agitated on the radio, and that's when his squad was getting chewed up by a tank. But normally Cherry is so
1-4,
fucking relaxed.
where are you?
Yeah, 1-4, where are you? And that's the only time I have ever heard Cherry get excited on the radio. But normally he's super relaxed and just kind of talks in a nice, cool, low tone. And like when you have chaos going around you and you have fucking teams chatter in your ear and shit, and then you have somebody like Cherry come across the radio, it's like, dude, I got nothing. I didn't hear a fucking word you just said. Would you please get excited about something?
Then you had Valentino being the flip side and being like, "Holy shit, God, that's holy shit."
Yeah.
that was Valentino, and then there was me, who was like somewhere in the middle.
I'd say my absolute hands down favorite would have to be Rada. Rada was one of those people who, a lot like Gregor as well, who you would swear like banged a fucking 8-ball of coke right before the operation started, because when Rada came across that radio, you fucking knew it was Rada talking. And there, even if it was the most mundane, trivial shit, like just 1-3s moving here, fucking Rada would blow it so far out of proportion you would think like he's handling the nuclear fucking football or something, and he's moving his guy 50 meters west. But very quickly, to answer a question from chat there, how come no IEDs? We rarely deal with IEDs. We do deal with them sometimes, but primarily we don't have EOD. In real world, when you come across an IED, guess what? You don't try and fucking disarm it yourself. You call up fucking EOD and they get up there and deal with it. You just drive around it.
We don't have counter IED anything. We don't have the rhinos like they have in real life.
Yeah.
We don't have the detection systems like they have in real life. We have no way to counter IEDs.
Yeah, now we have technically a way to make the trucks IED proof, i.e. like using a Duke system, which is very cool. But yeah, as far as like directly dealing with the IEDs, the only thing we can do is drive around them. So if we're just going to circumvent them anyways, what's the point? And we have no way to detect them in any way. So it means, it has to be out there where it's visual, like you have to be able to see it. So it kind of defeats the purpose of really having one, aside from some Michael Bay shit here and there. But yeah, like I said, in real life, you don't deal with them as an 11 Bravo. You stay the fuck away from it. You call up EOD and hand it off to them, and you carry on about your fucking merry day. And so to continue on, and as far as missing that person, you can miss him all you want. I think he's a total fucking douchebag and ruined my life for 6 months. So
what? That. I remember when Rada first stepped into a squad leader role, and I remember we were, I don't remember if it was platoon training or whatever, but he was on the radio and he was trying to relay orders, and he's screaming into his microphone,
and you can't understand a fucking thing.
Right behind him, and I was just like, Rada, calm down, okay? I was like, breathe, and then issue your orders.
Right.
Okay, just relax. I was like, it'll come out. And then he was like, he's like, all right, Sergeant. And then so he's just like, okay, this is blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, see, there you go. I was like, there you go, you got this. Now get your guys off this freaking hilltop. You're on the wrong side of defilade.
My favorite ever was when he stepped up to platoon for that short time, and the staggered pincer was one of the greatest things ever. And
is that like the box formation?
It's almost as good as the box. It's almost as good as Aston's
the tactical box.
The tactical square.
But, yeah, the tactical square. That's what it was. But no, Rada had a setup that he knew for sure he was being the most tactical motherfucker on the planet. And he was like, all right, we're going to pull off this maneuver. We're going to assault this, and, we're going to do a staggered pincer. And I'm sitting back going, what in the fuck is a staggered pincer? And everybody else is just silent, like, yep, Yep, just kind of doing the shake their head like, yep, I agree. We got done with the briefing and we all went back to like the squad channels and shit. And immediately everybody's like, what in the fuck is a staggered pincer? I was like, I don't know. There's a pincer and then there's a flank. I don't know. And by the end of it, we ended up just doing a normal pincer maneuver and, fucking hitting him like you normally would. So I don't know what it was he was actually trying to go for, but it didn't end up happening anyways. But yeah, the tactical square was definitely my favorite, and Aston pulled that one off, and Heckman was lucky enough to be there to see that.
But honestly, you look at Rada's first op order, or the tactical square, or whatever. To me, they were super silly things that occur in ArmA, but they're almost, to me, like part of like a necessity, because you have this brand new LT.
Oh, you have to fuck up to
don't
learn.
know fucking shit from fucking sideways. You know what I mean? And part of it was like, in Rada's case, that was more on me, to be honest. I probably should have stepped in a little bit more. In Lieutenant Aston's case, I definitely should have stepped in more, but I was like, I couldn't stop laughing when I saw the tactical square. But yeah, it's part of a learning experience, for any new LT. You can sit there for your op order and plan out everything. He literally had the bounding positions marked on the map. You bound here, you bound there. And then I know from experience that the second everything looks different. Yeah, the second you're on the ground, it's all completely different than looking at things from a topographical map. So you can't see the bounding positions the same as you will, because sometimes the brush, trees, like there's a lot of different things that happen. So it's like so any new lieutenant, try to keep your plans as broad as you can, because that way you can be more fluid and you can change things up. Just like, if you just say, okay, we're gonna take this town, and then we're going to, which is a standard thing that we do in the unit, right? So we secure a town and then we hold it for counterattack. Boom. But you'll see, oh, well, you take from this street to this street and this street to this street. It's like, what the fuck? Are you serious? You figure that shit out on the fly, because it's really not that hard. Like,
that's the kind of thing. That's the kind of thing that I always had to adjust once I found out about it. But sometimes it would be months and months and months when I was battalion commander at the time, before I heard that people were doing shit like that. And I'd look at it, and then I'd go back and look at their previous op orders, and I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Just stop. Like, this shit needs to be simplified. You need to give general orders, because you need to rely on your platoon leaders and your squad leaders to do exactly what you guys were talking about earlier, which is take care of their own shit. Like, you need to make generalized mission plans and accept the fact that even those super generalized plans are just going to go completely out the window once you get an unexpected attack on one of your flanks somewhere, and you're going to have to react to it. So why are you going to spend hours and hours and days writing all this shit down and making this perfectly, great looking op order that no one is ever going to utilize?
For me, it was easy. I put a lot of effort into one op order, and then we step into mission, and they're like, okay, Frago. And I was just like, I go, never again.
And we did that. Was that one of the FTXs where that was specifically the role of the FTX?
No, this,
because we've done that before.
We'll
do a planning meeting. We'll say, this is what we're going to do. And as soon as we get into the mission, we'll say, okay, we're doing something completely different instead.
This had something to do with, like, we were expecting to have pilots and, like, none of them showed up or something like that.
No, that
but
never
this
happens.
is back in the 15th. So after that, I was like, no, fuck that. That's never gonna happen to me again. I'm not gonna waste my time like that. But ultimately, too, you see it with experience. You see that your plan can literally change because of one terrain feature. One mortar lands in the wrong spot and takes out like a half a squad. Your plans change at that point. Like, you need to account for that. and things like that. And yeah, I will admit I might have learned a thing or two about being a platoon sergeant from Captain Drumheller. I'll never tell him that.
Lies.
But
You mean Gunnery Sergeant Drumheller?
well, at that time you were my because you had already lost Gunny by the time I
No.
came in.
Speaking of the 15th, you were talking about having to be on 4 radio nets. That's terrible. Let's talk about the radio nets that I was on as a
I can't even
platoon
imagine
leader in
with
the
how
15th,
haphazard
because
shit was.
we didn't have TAC Ps, and we had battalion over our heads. So we had to take care of our own aerial assets. We had to talk to battalion. We had to talk to platoon. We had to what else was it? Then there was convoy net, and then there were 2 different air nets that we had to talk on depending on what we wanted. We had to carry literally 4 different radios, and each one of them was on 2 different channels.
That's almost like how it was for me in person. Like when we consolidated and me and person were acting task force commanders and the platoon HQ at the same time. Comms got pretty fucking crazy then.
You know how many channels I have to be on as task force commander now?
2.
I can do it
even
from
then.
1.
Then it's 1. We can do it from 1. But and that's one thing that guys can get a little, and luckily, now we've changed that, and we've changed the SOPs as far as radio comms and stuff like that. But they're before, guys would get way too overburdened and wanting to be listening to all these different radio channels, and I need to carry extra radios and this and that, and no, the fuck you don't. You can do any job with 2 radios or 2 radio channels. That's it. That's the only fucking radio channel you need is 2. No more. You're good. But
who was it recently that was complaining about all the radio nets they had to be on? And I was like, why the fuck are you? He was on 4 or 5 nets.
It was a pilot talking about being on 4 or 5 nets, and it's well, you don't need to be on half of those nets, okay? Because 7.5, you're talking to an imaginary person in an ATC that isn't actually there. 7.9, you don't need to be on until your ass is crashing. You can program that shit when you're on the ground. You don't have to actually be on that radio station or that radio channel right away. You need to be on 7.0 and 7.1. That's it. You're good. You're done. The channel to talk to the JTAC, channel to talk to your other air assets. That's it. I can't think of any other fucking radio channel you need to be on.
I love that that's something that doesn't change. Like after you've been around for a good while, you start seeing, and just if anybody ever wonders why the first sergeant or captain Drumheller, why they might seem a little bit rough when it comes to certain questions or comments, it's because they've probably heard it more times than you can count. Even this story about being on too many nets. Remember when the medic said that? Because they were monitoring?
I think that's what it was. That's what it was.
Yeah,
it was
that's what it was. It was a medic.
What in the world?
That's when I almost abolished the medical net. And even then, when I was filling in as a squad leader 2 weeks ago, what the fuck was it going on?
It was a breakdown in communication because you received information from your medic through medical net, and you didn't receive that information through platoon net because you were filling in as a squad leader. I remember that exact situation. Yeah. Somebody had a MASCAS, and you didn't get the information over platoon net. Your medic came to you over squad net and said, hey, so-and-so has a MASCAS. And you were like, why in the fuck are you hearing about this through the medical net before I'm hearing about it on platoon net?
It wasn't even that. It was, I think it was the platoon. That was a different issue. But I was filling in as a squad leader a couple of weeks ago, and I think someone was trying to tell me to do something with my squad medic.
Because they didn't have contact with your medic, yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. My medic was off comms, and he's like, you need to get the medic up on I was like, that's my medic. That is not your medic. That is my squad
back
medic.
Off my shit.
He is not in your chain of command. He's in my chain of command.
Now, I have used the medical net to get to a squad leader before. When I've had a squad leader not answer me on comms, which turns out, it's because of that TFAR bug bullshit. But I've relayed from my medic, hey, get that fucking medic over to that squad leader and get him up on comms. Is he down or what's going on? Find out for me. So he can relay via medical net, hey, find out what's going on with your squad leader. And like I said, it turned out it was just the TFAR bug.
I don't even know what the medical net is. And that just made me, one step closer to abolishing that net. Burger saved it last time, but that just aggravates the ever-living shit out of me.
Oh yeah, and then rotary assets have 5-1 for reinsert, so they have 3.
Yeah, but the only one who needs to be on that is the person flying the reinsert.
Yeah, the reinsert bird. So yeah, even then he can still do it with 2 because he can just be on 7-0 and 5-1 and good. But yeah, that's one of those where guys, provided your hire is doing their fucking job properly, and like Yogi had talked about earlier, how I never left those guys in the dark. I always passed along every bit of information I was receiving and then expounded on it further in relation to what we were going to do with that information or that situation. If your squad leaders and stuff are doing their job properly and passing down that information, at no point in time should you ever feel like, well, I need to know more. I need to be on, other radio channels. I need more information. Like, there's should never be a situation where your guy should be like, I have no idea what's going on.
Oh.
Like, that's something that I hate the most, man. Like when last week when I filled in for Task Force Alpha and I was in that rear Vic, none of us had any idea what was going on for 90% of that mission. Like even the squad leader who was in the truck with me, I was like, Melius, what's going on? What are we doing? He's like, I have no idea. It's like, dude, fucking find out. Call someone. Why is this information not getting down to us? Why are we stopping here? Why are we not moving yet? Why are we sitting here? Like, that information should be seamlessly passing down from you at a company level to me at a fucking buttfuck team level. Like, I should know just as much of what's going on the ground as what the fucking task force commander does. Yes, it should take longer to get to me because it's got to go through multiple channels of communication, but I should know just as much of what's going on. Like anytime, we're doing something, like if I'm calling the A10 and on a gun run, I pass it along to platoon HQ, I fucking expect within the next 30 seconds that I could walk up to a random PV2 rifleman and say, hey, what's going on over here? And he should be able to tell me, well, we're about to have the A10 coming on a gun run right there. That's
Why
vital
didn't you pull
information.
that AI that's sticking out of the top of the MRAP out of the MRAP and put him back in?
We did multiple times and it just did the same thing. That's why I just left it.
Put him back. Could you just put him into a different MRAP? Try that.
No, because the gunner said it wasn't in his way, so I didn't give a fuck.
I like it. That's
Use him as a shield for the gunner.
Yeah, we
exactly,
should do that in real
man.
life.
Human shield.
So,
Operation
speaking
Human
of
Shield.
things that we have to deal with over and over and over again, look at the person in chat asking us why we don't do medevacs again.
Yep, I was actually going to comment about that.
See, that's Kyle though. Fucking Kyle knows better. Kyle knows because he's followed us fucking forever, so he knows.
If he knows, why'd he bring it up?
So yeah, medevacs. Fuck that.
We have 2 hours every other week to do a mission where guys have fun. We are not a medical unit. If you want to do medevacs in ArmA, you can be a medical unit. But we are infantry focused. We are not going to take everyone's time to clear LZ and try to get a casualty, especially with the number of casualties we take, because in order to compensate for fucking retarded AI, we got to put a fuck ton of AI down, and sometimes it works out well, sometimes it's garbage, and we lose, we got a big mass cas, and we're going to sit there and medevac an entire squad worth of guys.
Right.
All right.
Like Kyle says.
So
like
we can just be a fucking medical unit at that point, because that's all we're going to do the entire mission.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, Kyle knows it was a joke, but the worst thing, or I guess the most annoying thing we ever hear in a debrief is this sentence. I don't know if it's just me, but guess what? Newsflash, it's not just fucking you. It has never been just you. It will never be just you. Every single problem you have, or that you could possibly imagine having, someone else has had. Guess what? There ain't dick all we can do about it at the debrief. post it in the fucking bug report. Bringing it up at the debrief, great. Thanks for making us aware. But no, it's not just you. Other people are having the same problem. Post it in the fucking bug report. It's going to be the same response every single time, unless the issue you're having is because of your complete retardation, in which case we will immediately rip you a new asshole and tell you you are stupid. But yeah, like Heckman was saying, 99% of the shit that you can think of to bring up to, hey, why don't we try this? Why don't we do this? We've had that discussion 20 times over with fucking 20 different people with 20 different viewpoints and fucking 20 different reasons as to why we should or should not try something. Like, when you've done this for years, the shit gets old. And that's not to say, like, you shouldn't bring up an idea, but, like, when you bring something up, like saying, hey, can we try advanced medical? And we say, no. End of discussion. Don't get fucking butthurt about it. Use your common fucking sense and think, well, this unit has been around for over 3 years. I bet they've probably had that discussion before of using advanced medical. There's probably a reason why we don't. I could say, hey, what's the reason for us not using advanced medical to my squad leader? And the squad leader can say, well, this is why. Or your squad leader could say, I don't know, I'll ask Platoon HQ. And Platoon HQ will say, well, this is why. And then you get your answer instead of, saying at a fucking enlisted meeting with me, hey, why don't we use advanced medical? I want to use advanced medical. Well, this has been explained 35 fucking times. This is not something that should be brought up here. You did not have an original thought. Sorry. But another thing, like going back to like medevacs, there's also situations where one bugs, something like one of our trucks being taken out by a single RPG and the whole truck just exploding and going off, which it's not how it works. I mean, those trucks have RPG cages on them for a reason. Or like when we just get fucking plain lucky with an RPG, like when Drum shot me in the face basically on top of a building with like 12 other guys on top of it, as I'm screaming, physically screaming at them to get off of the fucking rooftop. Drum chucks a fucking RPG from like a click out, and it lands right smack dab on the center of that rooftop. Just by dumb fucking luck. And not killed, but downed everyone on the fucking rooftop. And I'm just sitting there shaking my head like, I fucking called it. And it wasn't even on purpose. Like, yeah, Drum was aiming in our general direction, but he wasn't like, oh, I got to figure out the range, get, my elevation just right. No, he just fucking chucked an RPG out there and smoked like 12 dudes. Just one quick hit.
Whoopsie.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, how many times have I fucking downed someone basically just by sheer luck, by spraying a machine gun or spraying a fucking AGS-30 or, the fucking running joke that I can fire a weapon into the air and the bullet will land on Drum's head. It's just...
I know you do it intentionally. You don't have to.
Oh, yeah, mostly. Hey, okay, I didn't shoot you at all on Sunday. I never fucking hit you. Not once. I shot Aaron right in the dick, which made me laugh like a little bitch. But I never shot you once. That's the first time in I don't know how long that I didn't hit you with a single round. And to be fair, the last cycle of FTXs, you shot me right in the face with a sniper rifle. So we're even.
Oh, okay. So you get to kill me like fucking 30 times, and I shoot you once, and we're even. Got it. I like that math.
Yeah, it's like a 1 to 30 ratio. It's good for me.
In Brewer's defense, there is some sort of mystical fucking power, because I remember that second or third in the not the FTX, the fucking ops where you were against like the Japanese or whatever, and you took over one of the Japanese, and you were, I don't know, maybe 800 meters away, and you just started firing your rifle
at the roadblock,
like, randomly. Yeah, and
yep.
You hear in your chat, you just hit Drum, and then it was like you couldn't even see what you were shooting at, and you just happened to shoot anyone, but it just happened to be Drum. It's like, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, like I'm firing beyond the fucking range of what you should even be engaging with this goddamn rifle. Like the characters look like a fucking 1/8 inch tall block, and I'm just lobbing rounds out there, and of course I down drum with like a single hit. But
Oh man,
yeah,
we should honestly do medevacs though, because
God no.
some of the operations there ain't enough pilots in fucking the real military to handle.
Right. Like the fucking like when we lost the airfield in Red Anvil.
Oh my god, it'd
Like
be
there was
just
so many
nonstop.
wounded and just people scattered everywhere. Like I think Drum was the task force commander for the, or no, he was battalion at the time. And I remember he hopped in the vehicle with us with 1-2, and Franklin was driving, and Franklin's like, "Where are we going?" And Drum's just like, "I don't give a fuck, just drive." As we're getting chased down by tanks and shit.
I remember when the unit was stood up and then Ace had come out and they were, Ace had the new medical and everything and everybody was talking. And the argument, it always goes back to this. It always goes to, if you punish the players that get downed, then tactics become more important because people will care more if they get shot.
Yeah.
And I would always respond like, do you guys literally run out like when as a platoon sergeant, when I write my op order and I come up with a tactical plan, I'm not thinking, oh well, these guys are just gonna get shot here, and then but I know that the medics will just be able to get them up. Like, does anybody really do that? Like Yogi, at squad level, do you just say, hey guys, we're gonna do this. You're probably gonna get shot, but don't worry, the medic will get you up. Is that enter your mind?
Well, send my squad to my death, but don't worry, Harper's here to save us. I've never fought that.
Yeah,
At least I hope it happens.
And that's what we were in this. What it was, sand table or back room, some nonsense where the leaders talk about stupid shit. It was just like, are you guys serious? Like, I was like, are you guys serious? Is that how you make decisions? Do you really in your head say I'm gonna do this because I know if I get shot, a medic's gonna have my back? Like even subconsciously, like just shy of if I get shot in the game, I have to shoot myself in real life. There's no deterrent that's gonna stop stupidity.
Yeah.
Like it's just not gonna happen. Like, and that was always the argument that people give. Frankly, it sucks when you go down and then you stare at a black screen for 5 minutes and then you die and then you have to get reinserted. That sucks hard enough. But with advanced medical, you might not even die, but you'll be out of the fight for like 45 fucking minutes. Yeah. No, thanks.
You just get to sit there. And that's, I've always, of course, we always hear the fucking argument, well, a realism unit using basic medical and this and that. And it's like, dude, it says right in our fucking mission statement on the front fucking page, when it comes to realism or fun, we're going to err on the side of fun. And I know myself, especially like when I was at a platoon level and, I was having to come up with the op ord, working with person, and we'd go to the fucking, we'd see the Warno on Wednesday, we'd go to the fucking planning meeting on Thursday, we'd come up with the op ord, we'd get it posted on Friday, we brief everybody on Sunday, then we go in and fucking do the actual operation. I know that like 5 to 7 hours worth of preparation I did for that 2-hour mission. Yeah, sitting down, face down in the dirt for 20, 30 minutes in the operation. That's why I put, all those hours of planning into it, is because I wanted to spend my Sunday night away from my family and sitting there staring at a black screen. Like, what? What?
I've had those missions where I stared at a blinking freaking screen.
That's
not in the 506, but in the 15th. Me and Valentino, we had one when I was a squad leader, and it was just, they just kept raining shells on us. So, if in ArmA 2, for those that don't know, like if your legs were broken, you couldn't walk, obviously, and in order to fix your legs, you needed a medic or a corpsman to have a med kit, and we ran out of med kits. We had none. They were all gone. So when we were extracting everybody that was like hit with these shells that couldn't walk, they had to crawl to the helicopter, which probably got shot. It was the worst mission, bar none. The worst mission. Then we get to the end, and then but the leadership, like literally tells us that they were punishing us for clumping up. So because of one mistake, which wasn't a mistake tactically, by the way, but I won't get into that. But one mistake in their eyes, they ruined not 2 hours, but 3 hours of our time.
For like 60 guys.
It was horrible.
And that's
Horrible.
like Kyle was saying about the convoy. But that's like, I remember, and I talked about this on the podcast with Soto. I remember one night in stream chat, I had this guy trying to bust my balls about having a fucking RCO on a saw, saying that no saw gunners use RCOs and this and that they only use MGOs. And like that type of criticism, and another one where, you know, we had someone in the unit wanting us to limit the amount of ammunition that we carry, to limit guys to like only 6 magazines, so we would have to take on less AI and make it more difficult. And, you know, like that kind of shit, like criticism like that or ideas like that coming from people that have absolutely no experience whatsoever in the field, it pisses me off so much. Like that recommendation of, well, we should limit ourselves to 6 magazines so it makes it more difficult. It's not even that difficult in real life, motherfucker. Like, I've personally known guys who go outside the wire carrying 15 magazines. I've seen motherfuckers that are 240 gunners walk outside the front fucking gate carrying almost 2,000 rounds of ammunition for that 240. Like, if you have not actually been there, if you have not actually seen it, shut the fuck up, because your opinion on what is real means absolutely dick all. And
or just do your research.
yeah,
Like, I mean,
it's
like,
not that difficult.
When I was setting up standard loadouts, you know, which is part of, you know, what a platoon sergeant does, I set the minimum amount of magazines to carry for our platoon back in the day. I'm sure that there's a standard now for the entire unit, but this is just back then. But it was 10 because I could not find any reason why you would ever step outside the wire with anything less than 10 mags, because in your vest alone you're looking at 8, because you have four
pouches that carry 2 each, and
two
that's
each.
A majority of the guys will carry like 13. They'll have 12 on them, 1 in the weapon. Like that's a normal fucking full battle rattle with 13 fucking magazines, and that's, you know, that's straight from personal experience and from guys that were, you know, deployed in other operational theaters. It's like, yeah, I didn't fucking step foot off base without 13 magazines. You know, if I had a fucking thumper, I was going out there with 20 40 millimeter grenades. Yeah, I had 12 in my front pouches, but I had another fucking 8 sitting in my backpack or in my pack that was in the truck or whatever, you know. And that's like somebody brought up the guy one night wanting to talk shit about us using thermals. Now, I will say majority of the U.S. units don't have the thermal that a lot of guys use for us. We do have the actual thermal optic that's weapon mounted now in the boxes. But he was saying that no U.S. units use FLIR. And I was like, okay, you are one of the most certifiably window-licking retarded motherfuckers I have ever met. I've personally seen FLIR in use. Like, even our PSD had fucking FLIR. Yeah, it wasn't weapon-mounted. It was one of the little handhelds, basically like the MX that we have. The only difference for us is that I can't sling the fucking MX2A around my neck like someone would have a fucking thermal scope slung around their neck. Instead of, you know, I have to pull it out of my backpack and put it in place of, you know, the fucking vector, and then close my inventory, and then I can look through the thermal. Yeah, it makes it more of a pain in the ass. But to say that no U.S. unit uses FLIR, I'm like, have you never seen any combat footage whatsoever, at least? I mean, for fuck's sakes, man. I can understand if you've never been in country and, you know, don't know because of that, but to, you know, never see any combat footage where guys are using thermals and shit like that. Like, fucking Christ, dude, just shut the fuck up. All you do is make yourself look like an idiot.
Slender King in chat says that I do wish we had handheld therms.
Oh yeah.
With the MX, like, which is, you know, when that was in our
Mhm.
loadouts, I never took the optic. I always took the handheld
Yeah, I
because
don't like the optic.
I was, well, to me it was more about like part of my RP, because I could spot them and then walk in the rounds, especially when they added in the pointing. Like, it was just like, you know, MGs fire here. They literally couldn't see shit, and I would just like, okay, walk it in, and it was fun for, you know, for both of us, and I just I liked it. Whereas like the therms on a, you put the therms on a thermal optic on a freaking 240, it's like, GG boys. They'll
Yeah,
wipe out
like
half the server and nobody will
I'll
even know.
I'll change things up every now and then just to like essentially give the stream something different to look at, if you will. So like sometimes
Mhm.
I'll carry the MX. Very, very fucking rarely will I use the actual thermal optic on the weapon because I fucking hate it. It's just too magnified and you lose all situational awareness of what's going on around you because all you can see is what's in the optic. But like I'll carry it every now and then just to, you know, give the guys watching like an idea of what it looks like and shit like that. But even when I do carry it, guys in the chat are usually like, "Why in the fuck do you have that thing?" Because everybody knows I don't like using it or I don't like carrying it. But like for me, if that's why like now I'm pretty much exclusively am back to carrying the aim point with the 3x because that's the optic I prefer because you have the most view of what's going on in the surrounding area of whatever you're looking at. You know, I didn't use it for a long time because it was kind of broken, but now it's working again, so I can use it. But it's not exactly, you know, there's not a lot going on in that sight picture. You're not seeing how like the ranging works and shit with the RCO. Like I dump a round out there. Was it close? Raise it a little bit. Dump another round out there. All right, on target. Start hitting them. It's not like, you know, when I carry the saw, I always carry the MDO because I love that fucking optic. It's got great ranging for it, and it's got the red dot on top of it. But I'm super simple with like my loadouts. The only, I guess, kind of different thing when it comes to loadouts is that I like to carry a fucking boomstick with me, uh, which a lot of guys don't. But I like my fucking shotgun. Drum always has his M9. I don't. I don't carry an M9. My backup or my sidearm is a shotgun. I don't. I don't bother with the M9. I like my shotgun. But like Drum, you'll see if he runs empty with his M4, he immediately, almost always, like if he's engaging someone and it runs empty, he immediately swaps to that M9 and starts hitting them with that thing. Now, luckily, I can do the same thing with the shotgun. I don't have to deal with all the inventory and that bullshit.
I only do that when I'm not sure if I have another magazine
Yeah.
full of ammo. Like once we're 75% of the way through the mission and I've shot, you know, a bunch of dudes and I've shot like 7 magazines and the rest of my magazines all have like 10 rounds or less in each of them, that's when I start transitioning.
Let me give you a little peek behind the curtain here, Broobs. In that operation where we were stuck at the farm and I had given out, dispersed all my ammo to people, I had my M9 and that was it. But little did anybody know that when I put that loadout together, I never put any magazines. So I just literally had an M9
You
with
just had an empty M9 or it had one
empty.
magazine in it?
No, I didn't even get the initial one because so I had an empty M9, and because I would always take ammo out and then put it back, you know, put it back in, but I
Mm-hmm.
just never put any of it back. So I just had an empty M9 in my hand, and so that was me out there. But it was too good not to roll with it. You know what I mean?
Don't worry, guys. I got this.
I remember your. Were you in 1.4 at the time, or were you still in 1.2?
For the farm, I was still in 1-2 because
Okay,
we were the
well,
only ones left there. It was just 1-2 and you.
I'll tell you, it was pretty. You knew shit was in dire straits when you saw 1.4's, you know, gunners just sitting there with their 240s on their backs and their M9s in their hands because they had ran out of all their ammo. Supply bird got shot out of the sky.
That is the only mission that I have ever ran completely out of ammunition. I fired my last couple of rounds as we were going to the extract bird. That is the only operation where I've ever ran completely out of ammo, and there was no way I was getting more because everybody else was fucking empty too.
Mm-hmm. There's somebody, I can't remember who it was. I think it was like I was trying to be the last guy to get onto the freaking chopper, but they kept like they like refused. They wanted to be that last man. I was like, get your ass in the goddamn bird. I don't remember who it was.
It was probably me.
I was trying to I got rid of what's his name like straight off the bat. That was the medic Vanderverd. I was like, yeah, goodbye.
Yeah, the guy that fucking took all the credit for grabbing the fucking HVT.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, dude, you were the last motherfucker up here to the barn. Shut the fuck up. Don't worry, guys, I got him. Well, yeah, congratulations. We already fucking secured him and cuffed him for you. Like, just take him and get the fuck out of here.
Oh, those are good. Those are good times.
As far as a link to that video, no, I wasn't recording back then. I know Franklin has a video of it. And it was quite a long time ago. But as far as the question, if we could have an op on any map anywhere, where would you want the map to be? Like if there was one place we could do an operation at, even if the map doesn't currently exist, where would we want to do it? And Trooper is totally psychotic and says Fallujah. What about you guys? Where would you want to do an operation?
Suburban United States.
Oh, thanks for stealing my answer, dick.
Suburban United States probably for me, most likely.
What about you, Yogi?
I wouldn't know what country or what state, but I'd just say anywhere with snow.
Just
be on a snow map. Yeah.
He wants to turn us into the 10th mountain or something. Yeah, I was gonna say fucking suburban US too, like total fucking which fucking is it Ghosts? Call of Duty Ghosts, where you're fighting through suburban streets and shit. I can't remember which one it was. One of those. But yeah, that would be really fucking cool to do an operation in the US. Like we got hit at home and we're fighting through backyards with, white picket fences and shit. Like that would be really fun. It's Modern Warfare 2. There we go. But yeah, like I've talked a couple times about wanting to do like a Red Dawn type gig, for like the squirrel stuff. I haven't seen a map yet that really would work well for that. But that would be fun as well. But yeah, definitely not Fallujah. Fuck that. Fuck that. Oh my god, no. Like to take a town that size, there's a reason it took the entirety of a division to take the town of Fallujah with tanks and shit. We don't have that ability in ArmA to like properly pull that off. Even most of the towns that we assault now are too big for what we have. Like Heckman was saying earlier, the majority of like town assaults and stuff we do, that would be carried out by minimum an entire fucking company, not a platoon. I would love to get to that point, to have an entire company and go in and assault a town properly and set up, our cordons and, clear it block by block and stuff like that. Like that would be absolutely outstanding, but it would be rough. Like there is a reason I always tell guys that CQC is the most dangerous thing we do, and that's not just in ArmA. Like in real life, CQC is the worst fucking thing imaginable. Like to be, you see it in like Generation Kill when those guys are rolling through the town when Manimal fucking lights up that building with the Mark 19. Like when you're in a gun truck rolling through a town and you got a dude up in a turret above you, that dude is exposed full 360 degrees to everything above him, which is everything. I mean, when you're in a town that's got 2, 3, 4, 5-story buildings, any random motherfucker can pop up in a window and drop that dude, and it fucking sucks. So yeah, I myself, I would not want to do an operation on a huge town like that, unless we could have a full company strength, and even then it would be rough. So moving on from all of, I guess, the reminiscing and stuff we've been doing very quickly, before we end the podcast tonight, as we're getting kind of close to that time, I wanted to talk about the other thing that you guys see me do a lot, which is Assetto Corsa and the racing. And the reason I want to bring that up is because, as some of you know, last night was Mr. Yogi's first race with race department. What'd you think of it, Yogi?
My arm still hurts.
Your arm still hurt?
Yes.
And so Yogi is just getting into sim racing, and unfortunately does not have a wheel and pedals and all the fun stuff that I get to play with yet. He is using a controller, which obviously not as good. There's a reason why, those of us that do sim racing have wheels and pedals and everything, but you can still get it done with a controller. The downside, though, is our shortest races are 30 minutes. That's our shortest races. Our bigger, more important races are minimum an hour. To hold your hand in those positions and, hitting those buttons and stuff for an hour straight, or even 30 minutes straight, that's pretty rough. It's pretty goddamn difficult to do. So Yogi had messaged me pretty much as soon as we were done and was talking about how much it hurt. But you said you had fun, right?
Yeah, I did have fun, even though I came stone cold last. I did enjoy myself. It wasn't like, even though I ignored the fact I came stone last, I just had fun racing with everyone. It was the fact there was several points that I was neck and neck, side by side with another car, and just trying to keep up.
Yeah, and you'd done some practice beforehand, before the race. You were on the server practicing and stuff. And once kind of everybody else got in there and started turning laps and everything and driving around you and stuff, did you expect it to be as kind of, not necessarily as cutthroat, but did you expect everybody to be as quick as they were, or did you think that, well, I got a good chance, I've put in a lot of practice?
Oh,
Did you go into it with an ego?
I came in knowing I was gonna come in last. I knew that as soon as I loaded into the server, I'm gonna come last, but do my best. But then, it really did hit me knowing, oh, I did a 141 around this track, that's good. And I see you and Tyreek doing 135s and 144s. Okay, I'm out of my league. I'm definitely gonna get destroyed.
Yeah, and I think that's a problem that a lot of times people have, when they first get into sim racing, is, they're like, oh, I practiced for 2 hours for this race, and then they hop into even, one of our small club races, and they're 5 seconds off the pace. And they're like,
Yeah.
well, fuck this, I'm not doing this again, it's pointless. And they don't realize, some of us, A, have been doing sim racing for years, B, you put in 2 hours of practice, and in that 2 hours you did 20 laps. That's cute. I did 115.
Right,
so
yeah.
it's, and guys get discouraged because they're like, well, I don't have a chance of winning the race. And that's, we tell guys all the time, when they're first coming into the club races and stuff, look, don't try and win the race, because you're not going to. You're not. Don't try and win the race. Just have fun. Drive around, bullshit with the guys in TeamSpeak, enjoy the banter, have a good time. Don't bother trying to win the race, because you're just setting yourself up for failure.
My goal was just to finish the race.
Yeah.
My goal was, I'm going to come third, I'm going to come sixth, and I wanted to finish the race. Now, obviously the first turn in that race was quite fucking hectic. I don't know what it was on your ends. Whatever happened in that first turn, and the second turn, I ended up coming sixth. So for the next 2 laps, I was fighting off 4 cars behind me. And that was the most terrifying fucking thing. If I make one mistake, no, I'm taking someone off the fucking track.
Well, and that's pretty common, not just in sim racing, but even in real world racing. I mean, there's always turn one carnage. Um, and it's the same way in sim racing. Somebody bumps somebody, you send somebody off, and then it's just a fucking clusterfuck from there. And usually the guy that starts all the way at the back of the pack is going to find himself somewhere in the midfield or above after
that was
turn
me.
one. It's every single race. It's like that. But you were talking about being ahead of those couple of guys and being terrifying. The night before the race, Monday night, we had done our Advanced Driver Academy where me and Bobby teach guys how to set up the cars and how to drive them and stuff. And one of the guys in there, I was following behind him. I was inches off of his bumper, and he come over TeamSpeak, and he was freaking out, and he was like, "He's right fucking behind me, man. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I'm so scared right now." And I did the same thing to you during practice or qualifying or something like that. And I followed right on your ass, so you could see what it was like to have someone right up behind you, and could get an idea of what that pressure is like. And it sucks to have someone that close to you and like you're tense the entire time, but at the same time it's super fun, and that's why we do it. Because like that race, I think I'm putting the video up today, or maybe I already put it up. I can't remember now. But for 30 minutes straight, me and Tariq were fighting back and forth. We were less than a second from each other for 30 minutes straight.
Yeah.
And it's so goddamn stressful during the race. I hated it. But afterwards, it's like, oh my God, that was so much fucking fun. Like, I'm ready to do that again right away. But that's like one of the beauties of fucking sim racing. It can be insanely stressful while you're doing it, but once you're done, and especially for me, I get to go back and watch the video and see how everything played out. It's like, Jesus Christ, I wish every race could be like that. So you've had your first race with Race Department, and I already know the answer because I already talked to you, but are you going to do it again?
Yeah, I signed up for next Tuesday's race, and this time I will change the fucking setup. And I'll stick with the default one.
Yeah, the default setup on most cars can be pretty good, but you can definitely find time and make them easier to drive by changing the setup. And to kind of jump over to Heckman, who I know has watched some of my racing, and you've mentioned that it's almost captivating to watch the race, that you kind of get lost in it. And when you had relayed that to me, like, I completely understood that, because somebody that I've talked about on my podcast before and on my channel in general is Jimmy Broadbent, who does a lot of sim racing, virtual sim racing. And, he'll do a driving stint of 3-4 hours straight. He'll be driving for 3 or 4 hours nonstop. Well, stop to make a pit stop. And I'll turn on one of those videos, and I'll sit there and watch the entire thing as kind of background noise. And every so often I'll look over and check out what's going on, and then keep on doing what I'm doing. And Heckman, have you found that's kind of the same thing for you, that it kind of turns into background noise for you, and you're not necessarily paying attention to every single thing that's going on, but it's there, and like I said, serves as background noise?
I wish, because in my case, in that instance that you were talking about, like, I was like sitting there, and at the very beginning I was like, yeah, this is kind of silly, you're just kind of going over and just doing these laps, and then it's like 10 minutes later I was just like, oh shit, I was like, that was a good run. And it's like 20 minutes later, it's like, okay, shaving off a little bit. 30 minutes later, and then it's like an hour and a half later, I'm like, why have I been watching this whole thing? What is, like, you were doing like one of the endurance races, and I was like, what? I was like, I go, is he gonna go for tires? And I was like super invested in, like, what you were doing. But other times, yeah, I definitely have it on my second monitor, and I'm just sitting there like playing Total War or even WoW or whatever. But it makes really good, because you're so interactive even while you're racing, that it's a really good watch.
Yeah, and I've had Bobby mention to me before. He's like, I don't know how you like talk to your chat and answer questions and stuff while you're driving. And normally, like when I start my streams, I usually have 20, 30 minutes to sit there and hang out and bullshit with the guys in chat, before we really start going. And then, I got to get into, doing my job in ArmA, and I can't pay attention to chat as much. And racing, I can pay attention to chat a little bit more sometimes, but I always like apologize to the guys for not talking very much and not like interacting with them because I'm having to focus on driving. And Bobby's like, I don't know why the hell you're apologizing. Like, you talk so much to those guys in chat, and you're, talking to the guys in TeamSpeak, and you're driving all at the same time. Like, I can't even comprehend how you're doing it. And for me, it's almost like I'm not interacting enough, because if I sit there for 20, 30 seconds not saying anything, it's like, oh shit, well, the guys that are watching are probably bored as fuck right now. Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, I pay attention to chat pretty much the entire time during the podcast. And to get back to that, as far as Cy asked, what about doing 101st World War II missions like Bastogne and Market Garden and stuff? We somewhat did a Market Garden mission a while back. It wasn't like a very accurate representation of it. As far as like doing a super accurate representation of it, I wouldn't really be a fan of it. I wouldn't personally want to do it just because of the personal ties that I have to it. It would feel weird for me to, if we were on a map that is labeled as, Bastogne, and it's snowy and there's trees, it would feel weird to me to be virtually in the same place, in the same gear, fighting the same guys, going through the same shit that my grandpa did. Like, it would be very eerie for me. I personally wouldn't be comfortable with it. I wouldn't be a fan of it, because I feel like there is nothing I could do in the virtual world that would even slightly compare to what those guys did. And it would be a disservice to the genuine fucking bravery and just inhuman actions that those guys pulled off while they were there. So yeah, I myself, I wouldn't personally want to actually reenact any real life battles that any unit had done. What about you, Heckman? Would you want to, like reenact something? Would you want to reenact the battle from We Were Soldiers?
Well, I think that's the thing with like what we do here. Like we don't really reenact actual battles that have occurred.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
for
whatever.
us. Yeah, for us, that's against unit SOP, is that we do not reenact real life battles.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, it would definitely be strange, because I don't think ArmA has the capability to really do any of those battles correctly. Like part of like when Call of Duty.
There's very few battles that only take 2 hours.
True. That's all very true. So you could simulate the part in Bastogne, 2 hours of just freaking frostbite.
Yeah.
That'll probably
well, that's something I had forgot to mention earlier. When guys were talking about when the guys in chat were fucking trying to talk shit about realism a while back and stuff, and I was like, I've fucking been there, cocksucker. You want realism, I will go stuff you out in a fucking desert and stand there for 3 hours and do absolutely dick all. All right? There's your fucking realism. All right? How about I tell you to go walk down this fucking road for the next 12 hours, walk there, walk back, 12 hours later get home, and you didn't do a fucking thing but walk in a straight line. There's your fucking realism. So, yeah, like you say, it's almost impossible for us to reenact something like that in ArmA. To do not a reenactment but a period specific operation. Yeah, I mean we've kind of done that, not unit wise, but like as like our group of friends we have, like, is also with Fun Ops, like with that Three Bridges operation that was supposed to be kind of like Market Garden, or we also did a pseudo kind of D-Day thing with WeWoo. What about that? I've never actually talked to you about that, Heckman. Is there like a specific theater or a specific time that you would really want to play in ArmA? Like, is modern really what you like doing, and that's it, or would you rather do like some futuristic like Halo type stuff or shit like that, or like Vietnam or what?
Well, World War II is pretty freaking good, just because of the varied equipment and total like war sort of aspect. Like the combined arms, I should say, in World War II was super nice,
Mm-hmm.
super nice. Tanks, troop transports, all of it's freaking just titties. Vietnam, I wouldn't mind. I honestly, I would dabble with some serious Vietnam. The only problem is that, like, by definition, unless you're doing like a Ledrang sort of thing, puts you in the jungle, which is the thing that
A total
ArmA
shit
does
show.
the absolute worst.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stick with World War II. Even that though, like, it has to be well done, because
Yeah.
all the World War II stuff is just so shit, man. And I know it might look good on the surface and the sounds and everything, but when you get in and then you start seeing like Germans like start shooting you through the hedgerows and stuff, that's really sketchy bullshit that can
Yeah,
like
it
really
really
ruin your
takes you out of it.
experience. Yep.
Yeah, and that is kind of what we're gonna try the Iron Front stuff again, because supposedly a lot of it has been worked on, has been improved a lot. But when we did that Three Bridges mission, I was carrying the Thompson, and Drum had the fucking Springfield, the sniper rifle, and I was smoking guys at like 300 meters with the Thompson. And I was like, dude, this isn't right. Of course, I'm still gonna shoot them because they're fucking shooting at us. But I was like, this just kind of takes me completely out of it. That I'm able to fucking pinpoint accurately drop these guys at 300 meters with a submachine gun. Like, it's just no. And yeah, I agree. Like Vietnam, I've done a couple of Vietnam fun ops, and they're very cool. But like Heckman said, ArmA just does not do the jungle well. You end up getting shot through the fucking brush and trees a lot, and it's annoying. But the weapons and the units and all of that stuff is very cool. What about you, Yogi? Is there like a specific era or theater that you really want to play in?
I wouldn't really go near World War II just because of family and my ties to it. But I would try and follow like the story of the 35th Battalion. I did the siege of Charlottesville, I think it was called. Of the Irish UN who defended that town. That'd be something I would be interested in someone trying to make it.
Yeah, that could be cool. That another one that we did a while back. I don't remember, Heckman, if you were there or not, but we kind of, again, not as a unit, but as like a fun op, we did a reenactment of Black Hawk Down. Heckman, were you there for that one?
No, that would be
'Cause
fun.
we didn't, this was early 90s. We didn't have a bunch of magnified optics. We had M16s. We were rolling around with fucking deuce and a halves and Humvees. At the end, when the quote unquote 10th Mountain showed up, they rolled up in a bunch of M113s and shit like that. Like, it was a really cool operation. It didn't go great because the map's performance wasn't that good at the time. I think Mogadishu's been updated since then. But it was really cool operation just for something different. It was still semi-modern equipment, but it wasn't all tricked out like what we have now. We didn't have fucking night vision goggles. We were using fucking flares and shit. We didn't have PEC 15s. Even if we did, it wouldn't have mattered because we didn't have fucking night vision goggles. We didn't have, RCOs with 4 times magnification. We had iron sights and shit like that. So it was something cool. Just to kind of change things up a little bit, and I had fun with it. But yeah, I think as far as like current are, as far as like stuff I'd want to play all the time, I would have to stick with modern, just because that's where I have the most experience, so that's where I get the most enjoyment out of it. So I would have to stick with modern Army as far as doing something regularly. Like I couldn't do like Optray, Halo stuff regularly. It wouldn't be that fun for me. So we're at that point, guys, where we're gonna wrap it up here. Before we go, Heckman, Yogi, any parting words of wisdom for your millions of fans out there?
Slender King, you're the best. And that's about it. That's all I got.
Just pandering to the audience. I see how it is.
You know.
Parting words and wisdom. I got none. Have a good one, folks.
Well, with that being said, that is going to be it for tonight, guys. Thank you very much for hanging out with us and asking some questions. And again, if for some reason you missed the first part of the podcast, or if you want to get involved in the podcast somehow, make sure you check out the links below for Patreon, so that you can get early access to the podcast, or also get involved in the podcast, whether it be sending in topics you want to hear us talk about here, or even potentially being a guest on the podcast. So make sure you check that out. And again, thank you guys so much for hanging out tonight, and I'll see you all later.